Set. Maybe we want to turn the lights on in the back part of the room so that you folks don't feel like you're left out in the dark. Okay, it's approximately 10 minutes after 7. I want to apologize for the slight delay tonight. Can we have roll call taken, please?
Chairman Conley?
Here.
Robert Brown?
Here.
William Pierce?
Here.
Gary Stander?
Here.
Emery Woodruff?
Is absent tonight. I want to welcome everybody here tonight. Appreciate everybody coming down and taking an interest in the business that is going on before the town right now. We have a lot of things on the agenda tonight. We have 2 public hearings, and as well, we do have some people who have business before the town tonight. I've received a lot of calls in the last week regarding people who want to be put on the agenda, and the agenda kind of got longer and longer as we went on. Everybody kind of said, you know, can you kind of get me in early? Can you kind of get me in early? Well, it's tough. Somebody has to be first and somebody has to be last. What we're going to try to do, and what I've decided to do, is try to take first those things that I feel the most people are here for. And that way, you know, when that aspect of the meeting is completed, you can choose to leave or you can choose to stay. But, you know, the only thing I can tell you is that we'll be right here alongside all you people who have to wait. Hopefully we can move things right along. A public notice was published in the paper, and I'll read it to you tonight. The Town of Volney Planning Board will be holding its regular meeting on Wednesday, May 27th at 7 p.m. at the Volney Municipal Building on County Route 6 in Volney Center. The Planning Board will not be holding a meeting on Tuesday, May 19th due to vacations. Actually, it wasn't vacations plural, it was vacation singular. I was on vacation. At this meeting, the Planning Board will be holding 2 public hearings. First, the Planning Board will be holding a public hearing to receive public input regarding an application by 9X Mobile Communications for site plan approval to build an approximately 300-foot communications tower on a 4-acre parcel on Mullen Road near Great Bear Road. Second, the Planning Board will be completing the public hearing on the proposed 100-unit mobile home park on 96 acres of land to be developed by Harry and Roger Gregory. This park would be located on the west side of County Route 6, just north of Volney Center. A short regular meeting will follow the completion of the public hearings. In order for us to ease things for the most people, I want to ask a couple questions first. Is there anybody here who's representing a proposed Roma subdivision tonight? Okay, we reviewed the file that we had. And in order to save you people the anguish of having to wait here to get on the board, I believe there is a couple key points that we have to have in order to give this proper review. And we're really not in a position to review it until this has been presented to us. And that is, go ahead, Bob.
We can't find a record that you submitted a seeker.
SEQR, long form?
Long form.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
After reviewing the file, we couldn't find that in there. I was wondering if it got lost in the shuffle or something with you people to us or something. In other words, you might have made it out or had somebody make it out and we didn't receive it.
I could verify that and check it out with Dennis.
Mr. Hawthorne possibly has helped you with that, or somebody has done that for you. We do need the seeker, and possibly a more definite definition on the site plan submittal itself.
Is this the site plan we have here? Is this the same?
This is all changed, sir. I made the building lots bigger, eliminated lots.
Okay, what you can do is if you want to leave that with us tonight, get the seeker material together. In fact, the code enforcement officer should have one. If not, I'll run down right now and get you one you can start working on. Contact me in the next couple days when you feel you can have it completed. and we can either try to schedule a meeting with you to do an initial review or get you right on the agenda. But without that, we really can't deal with the matter tonight. Okay? And rather than have you sit around and tell you this 2 hours from now, I thought we'd try to get you and save you, trying to do this to help you out. Okay? If you want to leave those plans with us, though, we can start looking those over.
Yeah, maybe a 2 cents because we got to take down to Stillman yet and get his seal on it.
Okay, I'm going to have at least 5 sets of plans because when you get me the seeker, we have to send that out to, I believe, approximately 5 different agencies. So get some copies made. They should have a surveyor's stamp and seal on it.
I have that here.
Okay.
He can get the seeker right from.
With the situation with the code enforcement officer, it's hard to gauge. I'll go get you a copy of the report right now.
Yes, I remember that. We will end up with 5 prints on that.
Okay, you might want to get with somebody on the completion of this document. This is a very important document. Okay?
Can't go any better than that.
All right? Then let me know. Okay. I just couldn't see you waiting around. We looked at it a couple weeks ago and saw that was missing, and I couldn't get a hold of you, so. It's not Roma. This is Sean DC. You have Roma.
Oh, you just took it from me, did you? No, I got it right here. I'm sorry. I got it.
All right. Okay, on, was it April 28th? On April 28th, we began a public hearing on a proposal by Mr. Harry and Roger Gregory to erect a approximately 100-unit mobile home park on 96 acres of land on the west side of County Route 6. I believe it's approximately 400 to 500 feet from the corner right up here. At that meeting, there was quite a bit. We had Mr. Bruce Stillman from the County Health Department speak and answer questions for approximately an hour regarding sewage, septic disposal, the processes that Mr. Gregory would follow to receive permits for water and things like that. Then we did open up the meeting for quite a while for discussion. We did not close the meeting at that date because of the fact that we had not completed the seeker process. Once we close a public hearing, we are required by law to come to a vote or come to a decision within 30 days. Because of the time involved in the seeker process, it was my belief at that time that it wasn't appropriate to close the meeting, so we adjourned the meeting. And we stated at that time that we would then be reopening the meeting tonight to complete the public hearing. Since that time, I believe on or about the 15th of the month, approximately the 14th of the month, I was contacted by Mr. Gregory, and there have been a couple changes made to the project, fairly significant changes. And what I'll do is after I get done speaking, I'll give him or his representative an opportunity to explain them in further detail. Is there anybody here tonight who is planning on speaking on this project who did not attend the previous public hearing? Okay, sir, are you a resident or are you an attorney?
I'm an attorney.
Okay, then it's not probably necessary for me. The only thing I'm saying is if there was people here, then I would go into a lot more detail explaining the project. with the fact that most of you have been here before, then I don't think it's necessary to go into a great deal of detail regarding the project unless you would like us to. I think we should lay out a copy of the most recent site plan on that table. I got it right here. Okay.
You want the most recent site plan?
Yes, if it could be put on that table for the public to review. And just very briefly, as most of you people are aware, we're talking an approximately 100-unit park. There are some questions of the type of structures on the park. It's a mobile home park. I believe that there are intentions for modular homes, double-wide homes, single-wide homes. The minimum lot size, as stated in the documents we have received, is 20,000 square feet. That is approximately 4 times the minimum lot size permitted for a mobile home lot in a mobile home park in the town of Volney. So the lot sizes are quite large. We have been working with the gentleman on this project since approximately last November, and the water would be well water. The handling of sewage, I'll leave it up to Mr. Gregory to describe the most recent changes made. Now, because of the fact that these changes have been made and proposed by Mr. Gregory, these changes are considered to be relatively significant changes, and they will require a resubmission of seeker. Seeker will have to be pre-prepared, if that's a word, and then resubmitted. It is also relatively significant in that it will have to then be submitted before the county planning board again. So there is some work to be done. We will complete the hearing tonight. It is my intention to close the hearing tonight. Okay? Is there anybody who at this time just has a question regarding any of the details regarding the amount of units in the park or anything like that? Okay, with that in mind, then I would request that the developer or his representative, could you stand up, please, and describe to the audience the most recent changes that are proposed?
Yes, thank you. I'm Bert Lois. I'm an attorney, and I'm representing Mr. Gregory. Here are the environmental assessment forms, hopefully in the quantity that you desired. Here are the new plans, again, hopefully in the quantity that the board requires. Basically, the change that's been made, and I think it's one that raised the most questions and issues in the last meeting, and that's the package treatment plant that was really being recommended and being used for the disposal of sanitary waste. That has now been eliminated, and instead of a package treatment plant, we're looking at individual septic systems that will be designed by the appropriate engineering firm and will be approved by county health in each instance. And county health, of course, will be reviewing them and approving them. Nothing, of course, can be built without an appropriate system, and the county health department must approve each one. So the project now will, instead of having a package treatment plant, will simply have individual septic systems. The lot size, as you know, is 4 times those sizes that are required by the ordinance. This is going to have, for a mobile home park, the largest lot sizes in Oswego County, and the design will be adequate to handle the individual septic systems. As you know, the project is going to be phased over a considerable period of time, perhaps 30 units to begin with, and then depending upon the public acceptance and the economy, which right now could use a little boost. Hopefully the project will move along and eventually be completed, but it isn't going to be built overnight. In any event, the septic system and the water system will have to be approved by the county and eventually by the DEC before any project is underway. What we're seeking is a recommendation for preliminary site plan approval when the timing is appropriate to the Zoning Board of Appeals, so they can determine whether the special permit should be granted. The project, as I understand it, would then go back to the planning board for final site plan review, The county would have to approve the drainage, sanitary sewers, and also the public water system, as would DEC, and only then would we be in a position to get started. So we do have a ways to go, as the chairman has indicated, but this is in effect, I suppose you could call it almost a new submission, because the change in the handling of sanitary waste is a major part of this project, and that is going to be handled as outlined. I believe the plan also shows the direction of drainage, surface drainage, and where it's headed. It also has attached to it, the engineer has attached to it, the preliminary drawings as they pertain to the road and the private road, which will circulate throughout the entire project. The road will be a private road, be owned by the developers. However, they will consult with the appropriate town officials as it pertains to sufficient road contours so as to handle emergency vehicles. And it does show that on the plan. I guess most everything on the plan has been reviewed previously, and I don't want to go over it again because I don't think that really adds anything. But we do want to make the submission. We do feel we have a great deal of information on it now so that the board can go forward. I understand it will be submitted to the county for review and eventually come back to this board for another and final determination. If there's any questions anyone has, if I can answer them, I will. I'm obviously not an engineer and I can't speak to the specifics of it. I will add, we received a letter from County Health. They did do some deep hole and percolation tests, and that I wanted to give you the results of that, and that's one of the reasons why we've gone to this kind of a sanitary system. And there was also a question raised at the last hearing about the number of people who reside in mobile homes, and we have a study that was done some time ago by Owens Corning Fiberglass, which indicates in facilities such as this that the average home or mobile home has 3.3 people, 2 adults and 1.3 children. I always wondered about that 0.3, but that's obviously an average. Now I'll leave you some of those just for the record. But any other questions you may have, we'll be attempting to answer. And obviously I'm presenting this to you tonight, so this is your first look at it. But that's basically the change in the submission has to do with the package treatment plant and the septic system proposal, which we're making in its place.
How many copies of the site plan did you give us just now?
Did I give him 8, Rod? 8.
I think there's 8 up there.
Okay.
I believe it's 8. If you do need more, we can furnish you more as quickly as possible.
Marie, you want one? Why don't you come up and take one?
I'm going that way.
Okay. Bert, I have a couple questions, just a couple brief questions. Approximately how far behind the rear of a house is the start of the raised bed?
The best we can tell, it's about 60 feet.
Could you briefly, could you or Roger give us an idea of what prompted the decision to change from the sewage treatment plant to this type of a package?
I guess one of the reasons is that because this is going to be built in stages, it was, I believe, the engineer's opinion at the last meeting that a package treatment plant works best when the project is completed, and that when you're dealing with only, say, 30 units out of 100 on a package treatment plant designed to handle 100 units, it doesn't work as efficiently. We can't say how quickly the entire 100-unit park would be completed. It was our feeling that this would create, or possibly could create, a problem for the area or for the plant or for the project. And it was generally agreed that individual septics, such as the ones that are planned, approved by the county, would work more efficiently and would be a solution to the problem, and would be something that the public also could understand. Package treatment plants aren't something that are done every day, and the public in general has difficulty in understanding exactly what's proposed, what its effect on the environment is, and what all the after effects might be. So it was felt that this is a system that everybody is familiar with. It could be designed more easily. It would be tailored to the various units. It would work very well with the staging of the project, and all in all, it would be satisfactory, and obviously still has to be reviewed and approved by the county and DC.
As I understand it, in the conversation that Mr. Gregory had with me, that this would be, that these sewage treatment systems would be based on the concept of zero perk.
That's correct.
Could you explain what you mean by zero perk?
Well, my understanding is that toward the rear of the property, there are some areas that are wet. And in order to handle that situation, this particular proposal treats those areas as if there was zero percolation, and they're designed to work effectively in that kind of an environment. Not being an engineer, I can't describe to you how that happens because I'm just not technically expert enough to know that. But it's our intention, and it's the intention of the engineers who are designing it, to deal with the portion of the property toward the rear where there may be any wetness, so as to design it so that it can handle any kind of a situation where the wetness of the property or the wetness of the land may be a problem so far as percolation is concerned.
Okay. Also, one of the things that's discussed is you do, on your arrows showing the direction of drainage, it states, I believe in this letter, and I only have one copy of it, surface water drainage to be incorporated into the roadside ditches. See typical road cross-section with flow as indicated by the arrows. Okay, where ultimately is this water going to be going?
I believe there's...
What you're saying is on this roadway, it's going to be directed towards the culverts along County Route 6?
That's correct.
And then on this side into the tributary to Bell Creek. I think one of the concerns that was expressed is the actual locations of the homes themselves. I think that what we were hoping to have addressed at some point, this was something that was brought out at the last public hearing, was, is there any, and we would like to know, is if there's going to be an effort made to have these homes at a sufficient height that they're not going to have a problem with standing water, you know what I'm saying, on the property itself. For example, other projects we have dealt with, they tend to slope the land in such a way that drainage will then, let's say if you want to direct it into the roadside culverts, that's fine, but then you're going to be building up the land somewhat, particularly because that land is flat and it does tend to be a little wet. You'll be building up the property a little bit so that it tends to slope somewhat into those roadside culverts.
Well, the plan is to drain the lots in such a fashion that the water flows into the culverts and then into the final resting place, so to speak. Obviously, at this point in time, we haven't shown an elevation for all 100 lots because it just wouldn't be practical now to do so. However, as part of the site plan review process, which will occur down the road in the final phase of this, that's a subject that I assume the planning board would want to address and know specifically where the units are going to be and where the water's going to be.
I just like that, what I would be looking for is something addressing this, some written document basically stating that the homes or the location of the homes will be, if it's going to drain into the roadside culverts, that there'll be a minimum height. Let's say that it'll be 6 inches at the minimum ground level at the location of the homes. Let's say it would be 6 inches or a minimum of 6 inches or whatever an engineer would deem appropriate, so that we will have that drainage at least somewhat going in the direction of the culverts. That's been my experience in some projects where if that's not taken care of, it's like pouring a foundation in your basement, you know. You got your sump pump in one corner, but the water never goes there because you never pitched the concrete properly. And And we do want some type of, I think that in order to address that problem, that was something that was brought out at the last public hearing, and I think it's, I personally feel that there's some good points regarding that we would like to see, at least in some type of written document, that we can hold on to, that there will be an effort made to raise the ground level somewhat at the location of the home so that we do have some type of drainage taking place so that we can avoid a problem with standing water, you know, which at least there's a lot of people who feel that that is a problem at that, or could be a problem at that location.
We'll provide that
Okay.
as promptly as we can.
Is there any questions before I turn this over to the public? Does any other members of the board have any?
Let the public speak.
Okay. Bob?
Yeah.
Okay, is there anybody in the audience? We didn't get a list of names out today, did we? I want to apologize for that. We had some people questioning us in the office regarding some business that they had, and I didn't get a chance to get out here with a pad. I will ask to take your names and addresses. Please direct your comments towards the board. Remember that these are in the form of comments. If you have questions to direct to the Gregories, I ask that you direct them to the board, and then we will in turn determine whether, ask the Gregories if they'd like to respond or not. What we are trying to do tonight is we want to avoid controversy. We want to use this as, try to have this to be a question-answer format and information format. When it goes beyond that, unfortunately, it doesn't become productive, it becomes destructive, and we want to avoid that. Who would like to be the first to comment tonight? If nobody raises their hand, we'll close the public hearing. Yes, ma'am. Can I have your name, please?
Yes, Shirley, and I live on County Route 6, and I want to know if the seeker process has been completed, and by completed I mean filled in completely by Mr. and Mr. Gregory, and if it has been submitted to the board for review.
Seeker process, as I said at the beginning of the hearing, will have to be totally resubmitted due to the substantial changes being made in the site plan. We did receive something tonight, just about 3 minutes ago. I have not had a chance to review it. I'll be glad when the time comes to make you out a copy of it, but it will have to be resubmitted to all involved agencies, and we'll get a copy off to the school district. I think that was brought up at the last meeting that they thought that that would be appropriate. We'll make it a point to do that, and the whole process has to be begun again, Shirley. Okay?
Do you feel that maybe this hearing is being held in vain? Because, I mean, you've got to go over everything again, obviously.
I scheduled the hearing on April 28th to take place tonight, and I put it in the paper for that. Therefore, I'm obligated to go with the hearing. I was made aware on approximately the 14th of this month of this change. This change does have an impact on how sewage treatment is going to be handled. It does not have an impact on the site plan itself. It's up to you if it's your feeling that that's the case. I'm pretty much obligated to hold this hearing tonight, and I fully intend on closing the hearing tonight.
Thank you.
Yes?
If you close the public hearing tonight, when everything is resubmitted, does this mean we go through another whole public hearing?
There is a public hearing that will have to be held in conjunction with a special use permit. If the Gregories can comply with the information that we will require, we will strive to combine our public hearing with the public hearing for special use permit. Therefore, that's our intentions, but that is totally dependent on whether the applicant supplies us with the material we need in sufficient time for us to do that.
If you close the public hearing tonight, doesn't that mean you have to vote within 45 days for site
Yes,
plan
it does.
approval? So are you planning on voting tonight, or are you voting within 45 days for this approval?
I can speak for what,
without the secret process? Are you going to vote without the secret information?
we'll have to see what happens at the closing of the public hearing. Yes, Shirley?
How can we make a determination on this without any seeker information other than this 5 minutes that you just got the seeker in?
What the board is ruling on at this time is the board is ruling on the site plan that was submitted to us prior to the start of the last public hearing. We are not judging this site plan here. okay? We have to make our judgment based on the application that was filed with us. I began a public hearing with a site plan. Okay, this is a new site plan. We make our judgment on a site plan that was submitted to us at the time the application was completed and at the time we scheduled the public hearing.
Okay, now the site plan that was submitted the first time, that's what this hearing is all about, correct?
That was what we scheduled our public hearing for. The applicant has made changes to the site plan, right? That constitutes a new submission. He has discussed that with you tonight, and you have an opportunity to comment on that or ask questions regarding that. I'm sure that, you know, assuming this process goes forward, that'll give, you know, you'll have a head start on this information. That's why I was very happy to give Marie a copy of the site plan. We have seen this for the first time tonight. What we have to do is we have to complete our consideration of the site plan that was presented to us. What's the last date? 4/28. Yeah, on 4/28.
Okay, so the hearing tonight is on the first site plan, not on the second.
When you get right down to it, the site plan itself really hasn't changed that much, and I'd be very interested in comments regarding that site plan. The secret process will have to be begun again.
Okay, you're still not answering the question, Kevin. Is this meeting, this public hearing, on the first site plan that was submitted, or is it to do with this site plan that's just been submitted?
It's the site plan that we showed you at the last meeting, at the last public hearing. Yes, could I have your name, please?
Tormina, Kingdom Road.
I'm sorry, Thelma?
Tormina.
I should know.
Just so you don't get hung here, Kevin, I think what they want to know is there going to be another public hearing on this site plan that has been submitted tonight in regards to the septic tank versus, you know, instead of the sewage treatment plant?
We will be required to have a public hearing regarding this site plan. What we are striving to do is to save everybody problems. I have been in discussions with the chairman of the zoning board, and we will strive, if the material is submitted to us in time and we receive everything that we require, to combine a public hearing with a public hearing that is also part of the special use permit process. The relationship between special use permit and site plan approval is really kind of complicated. You talk to 4 different experts in it and you get 4 different answers. One person says you do the site plan first and then you do the special use permit, and the other person says you do the special use permit first and then the site plan. When it gets right down to it, it's important that the zoning board and the planning board work together in a cooperative manner. We started this year out striving to do that. The last couple months, we've been kind of like buried with projects, and we got away from that. And we want to try to get back into that again.
Okay, second question. Does the seeker for the use with the septic tanks, does that have to be completed before you make your decision?
Yes.
So you won't be making a decision on this then until you have all that information back to you, correct?
We're closing the public hearing tonight, okay? I want to close this public hearing tonight. Hang around, and we'll see what comes of it, okay? Yes, hi, Jim?
Jim Hinman. I have a question on the zero perk test. He said he couldn't explain what that meant for the leachate fields, but does that mean that the leachate fields have to be above the ground for the evaporation?
As I understand it, and I'm not an expert in this, Jim, and I just saw this, but there was another project Barry Dean over on Old Route 3 had that utilized what's known as Old Route 57. It's called a raised bed system, a sand filter system, and that's what they're incorporating. As I understand it, and maybe there's somebody here could correct me, zero perk is considered for the poorest quality soil. So they have to, and we'll try to get more information on this, but it will be designed to handle the poorest quality soil.
Okay, well, my concern is that, is this good planning to have all of these little bunkers behind all of these trailers? Because that's what I would imagine it would look like, little bunkers behind all the trailers. Is that, you know, a very appealing?
It exists, it seems to exist on more and more projects. Like I said, Barry Dean has an apartment complex on Old Route 57 that incorporates a sand filter system, and I think there are
can see
other.
it for one situation, but you're talking a multiple situation here of many.
I think he's got 4, right? I think he's
4 or
got
5,
4,
yeah.
1 for each building. It's a good question.
The other concern I have is the drainage going by the road. What if leachate gets into that drain? And isn't there a law that you cannot have septic drainage going down along the road? And what way do we have to make sure this doesn't happen, or to monitor this if it should happen?
As I understand, and I don't want to, Bruce Stillman spoke at the previous public hearing that we had, and at that public hearing, I believe one of the statements he made is that a proper operating septic system does not allow septic waste to reach surface level, and that if that does, then your system isn't operating properly, which we do have that problem in some locations in this town. And then under those circumstances, your septic system has to be addressed and corrected. That's something that the code enforcement officer obviously is expected to enforce. You know, we're judging this project on several levels. First of all, as you are aware, this project, this type of use is permitted in an agricultural zone. The gentleman has a right to do this in an agricultural zone. He is obligated to follow state regulations, which I believe are quite strict regarding erection of an approved septic system. I don't know if it's our job to determine if this approved septic system is proper or not. I think you do have a good point, though, regarding the appearance.
Well, just some concerns.
Right. I don't know if I'd want it in my backyard. Shirley, let's see if somebody else got their hands up. Okay. Yes, sir.
Fred Cannon. Hi, Fred. I just want to see if I've got this right. You're going to vote on the old proposed hearing, and Mr. Gregory has foreseen great problems. He's changed it significantly. I would think on the old plan that it should be rejected. The developer's rejecting it.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin, can I make another comment?
Yes, sir.
First, it's my understanding that it wasn't Mr. Gregory felt that there was anything wrong with the other plan. It was that the public doesn't quite understand what the sewage treatment plant would do, and that as it was done in stages, maybe it would operate better if you were to use raised bed septic systems, which obviously many people don't seem to understand that the county and the state have also changed their stipulations of what your perk has to be. Raised beds are no worse than a regular septic system in the ground. Some people say they're better. The sewage treatment plant, in my opinion, would have been the best way to go, but obviously a lot of people in the public just don't understand how it's going to work, or they're afraid it's going to back up and that it's not going to work. Well, that can happen with septic tanks. It can happen with your personal septic tank. You know, I just want to make the comment that it was my understanding that it was not Mr. Gregory's opinion that he was doing something wrong to begin with this treatment plant, that they thought that that was the best route to go. It probably is, but since everybody was so against it, he figured he'd go with the flow of the public and make Volney happy.
I think that, right, I think you got a point. I think that one of the factors is that, as I understand it from attending the meeting with Mr. Stillman, if the sewage treatment plant operates properly, the quality of the water coming out of it would probably be cleaner than your normal stream water. I think, though, as was brought out by Mr. Lowitz, you have to have a certain flow in order for it to operate efficiently. So that might be the type of system that needs a minimum flow to operate efficiently. And possibly there may be a period of time as the project progresses where that flow doesn't meet the minimum and it could cause problems. And I think that might be part of it. I do think that you're right. There was a lot of controversy regarding that. I can't speak for the developer, that this was his decision, and you know, he's going to have to go through the process. Yes, Mrs. Austin.
I'm going to give you my presentation, that was okay. My name is Marie Austin, I live on RD4, County Route 6. Okay, first of all, I would just like to comment that the people are not that ignorant about the sewage and the septic tank, as we're being informed here. I spoke to Kevin Conley at the last town board meeting, and what he said to me is that the plan has since been changed. And I said, oh, why is that? And he said, because the Gregories really don't want to have to file a speedies permit and involve the DEC, so they're going to go with full septics now. And I said, oh, is that so? Does this mean we don't have to go through the seeker? And he said he wasn't sure. And so that's when I've been in contact with the DEC, because we want a full environmental impact study. And if he was to go with the sewage treatment plant, which means he'd have to apply for a speedies because he'd be discharging into Bell Creek. By going with the 100 septic tanks, he's hoping he will not have to file a speedies permit and won't have to involve the DEC completely. And that's the reason that this plan has been changed. I have to agree with everyone here, when you have a public hearing on a plan, it should be on the proposed plan in front of you. I don't know which plan we're talking about. I think it's a lot to ask us to walk in here tonight, hand us a piece of paper and say, okay, comment. That's the whole purpose of an environmental impact statement. The EAF report that I talked about last month, that's why it's there. It's supposed to be on file in the town hall so people can come and look at it to see if they feel it's supposed to be a negative or a positive impact on the community. So that's some of the concerns. And I did also talk to Kevin. He did tell me, he says, well, Marie, I can understand your feelings, because if this thing was going across from me, I'd be fighting it too. And that concerns me, how you can consider approving a project if you don't think it's going to be a good thing for the town. If it's going across from him, it wouldn't be a good idea, but why is it a good idea? Because it's going across from us. On October 31st, 1990, I presented information to this board regarding the proposed minor subdivision that is now located on County Route 6. That's the 3 modular homes that are down there, two modules and a trailer. Let me remind the board that the concerns at that project are the same concerns that we have with this project, but on a larger scale. We expressed at that time that a major subdivision was in the works. Mr. Gregory adamantly denied there was any plans for a major subdivision. He only wanted to develop 3 lots with 3 modular homes. The board said he would have to comply before any certificate of occupancies would be issued. A contract was drawn up and approval was given. We reminded the board about the previous contracts that he violated with regard to the J&J Trailer Park. I have numerous complaints here written by the building inspector of code violations that Dan Rousseau provided to me. In the minute it states, and I'd like to quote, the chairman noted the following stipulations that would be added to the site plan approval in this case. No, quote, no work can be started on any site until all certificate of compliance is issued by the engineer's drawings are submitted with all required approvals and statements submitted testifying to adequacy of potable water on site. A certificate of occupancy will also have to be issued for every site. I'd like to refresh your memory about what happened. Let me see, what's the date of this? February 5th, 1991. The 40-year-old Volney man was evicted from his trailer home Monday morning because the developer of the property had allowed him to live there for 2 weeks without hooking up any water or sewer. The violation stemmed from the Gregory's failure to obtain a certificate of occupancy permit before allowing this Mr. Ledger to move inside, Rousseau said. The town required the certificate as a part of the contract with the Gregory's to develop a 3-lot subdivision on Route 6. I don't want the town to be the scapegoat for this, Rousseau said. We really worked hard to keep this from happening. But he basically has disregarded the contract that had been worked out by the planning board. And the Gregories are here again tonight with their 4th lawyer since I've been involved, asking you to trust them. How many times must you give your contractor the trust when he has total disregard for the town's planning and zoning laws? We do not have a full-time building inspector to watch over this project. Just the fact that he does not want to involve the DEC really concerns all of us, and it should also concern this planning board. He has put up no significant dollars, no engineering studies providing you with the information for you to make a sound and intelligent decision. We have no information from the State Health Department regarding the drinking water supply, purification, or filtration system. Now he wants to change the plan again. Why? Because he feels by not having a speedies permit, he will not have to file a full environmental impact statement that Bill has said before it may cost up to $90,000. Okay, in the comprehensive plan for the town, it states that the development should progress, and careful planning needs to be done in order to preserve the open spaces and the rural setting to provide the aesthetic appeal for this agricultural community. The residents are very serious when we ask you to vote no not to approve this project. Because procedures are not being followed thus far, we are prepared to file Article 78 to proceed with this action and to ensure that all procedures are followed. Hopefully, we will not have to do this if this board will require all procedures be followed prior to approval, the same way that you do every other contract that comes before you. They come in here with full engineering studies, with proper water and supply in hand. The completed studies first, then the approval. As the chairman of the zoning board stated in her letter regarding this project, let's not put the horse before the cart. I also have a letter here. Dan Russo couldn't make it tonight. He asked me to read it on his behalf. In regards to your question about a seeker review being needed for the proposed trailer park, I believe that a full review is needed. A project of this size, may be a subdivision or a trailer park, can have a large effect on the community. Also, with the town being the lead agency, I believe that the state law mandates a full review by the town's planning board. If I can be of any further help, please feel free to call. I should point out, however, I will be leaving my position effectively 5/31/92, and any decisions thereafter will have to be made by the person appointed to replace me. I also received a letter today from the DEC, and I would just like to comment. I'm not going to read it. I'm sure, did you get a copy of this letter today, Kevin? Okay, I'll provide you with one if you like. This is from Barry Barrow. He answered your questions that you sent to his letter asking if the mining permit could be used, and it here says enclosed is a copy of the mining permit EAF negative declaration for the Gregory mining permit. Be cautious in applying any impact assessment conclusions from the mining operation to the mobile home project, as the mining covers 72 acres of the 98-acre parcel. The mining reclamation did not call for construction of a mobile home park. Before Mr. Gregory can proceed for construction, he will have to amend his mining permit in the area of mining activation, coinciding with the area of the proposed park. And I'll let you read it. And it also talks about being that this is an agricultural area and there's active farming in the area. We generally consult with the New York State Department of Agricultural Market districts for prime farmland becomes an issue. See page 194. And I would just like to say in conclusion what he says here. For the lead agency to mandate specific mitigation could be considered extortion for the project. However, the applicant should be presenting to the agency what he proposes to do. Quote, not what do I need to do to get this project approved. The lead agency has final approval of any proposed mitigation with input from all involved agencies. I ask you tonight, before you close, if you close this public hearing, that you do not vote on anything until all studies are incomplete, so that people can have full review, so we can give proper input, and that you can make an educated decision. Thank you. I would now pick it up on my lunch hour. I would now like to introduce, if I can, our attorney for this evening. Is that okay?
Well, let me see if there was... Have you raised your hand yet? Yeah.
That's our attorney.
Can I have your name, please?
Yes, his name is Dick Gregory. And many of you will be familiar with Dick. He is the one that represented the DEC when the Bristol Hill landfill went in, and Dick and I were on opposite sides. He did a good job. He got a landfill, and I hated him ever since.
My name is Richard Brickwitty, and I'm with...
Before, sir, I'd just like to make a couple comments, okay? Will these comments be directed towards this Gregory project, or are these comments going to be directed towards previous Gregory projects?
They will be directed to both. And I think it would be useful for the board to hear what I have to say. I think you've taken a useful step in backing up and agreeing that seeker is going to have to be re-complied with, because one of the points I was going to make was that seeker has not been complied with to date, and were the board to approve any project at this point, it would be acting illegally. And I'll talk slow enough so your secretary can take down some citations they'll give you, so that it will be easy, or relatively easy, for you to follow the thought process, which I think the planning board should be following
Okay,
this
let me
matter.
just mention a couple things first, okay? First of all, I just want to make one comment. My request to the DEC for a copy of the mining seeker application was for information purposes, and it was not my intentions to use that as a substitute for the application that they had submitted. I just felt that since this property had received previous seeker review, and we had nothing on file regarding that it would be useful to us to have a copy of that previous seeker review for reference checks, and just curiosity to see if you have two agencies doing seeker, how they compare. Because you got the same piece of property, and I was very interested how each one would answer the question and whether the answers would be the same. I would also like to just mention that I think Marie was probably the first person outside of my wife who was aware of the fact that the Gregorys had made a change to that project. As I said, I had received that information, I believe it was Thursday the 14th, maybe Wednesday the 13th, and I attended the town board meeting that night, at which time we made during my presentation, I brought out the fact that that change was being made, and I did tell Marie prior to that meeting because I think it was important that she be aware of it. But I do think that there was a little bit of miscommunication there, because I do not remember saying that they did that because they wanted to avoid filing a seeker DEC speedy permit. If she says I said that, then I misspoke, because as I understand it, when he spoke to me, the reason why he changed the project was twofold. One, due to the public controversy which has surrounded the sewage treatment plant, and two, due to the possible flow problems. He did not say anything to me about the fact that he was trying to avoid filing of a speedy permit. So if that's what I told you, then I
Let me
misspoke.
clarify exactly what you said, Kevin. What you said to me was that Mr. Stillman had advised them if they went to full septic, they would not have to involve the DEC. That was your exact comment to me.
That's possible. I might have said that because he did spend the afternoon with Mr. Stillman. But I do think that I'd like to clarify these things, because there does seem to have been some misquotes that have occurred here. I'd like to let you speak at this time. I would appreciate it, though, if we would try to bring this around to this specific site plan that we're reviewing. We do have other gentlemen here. We have other business to take care of, okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
For the benefit of your secretary, I'm going to be referring to some sections, and they are all in 6 NYCRR, which stands for the New York Codes, Rules, and Regulations.
I'd like to throw one other thing out, okay? We are not going to be, I'm sorry, but this can turn out to be a long session here. I've sat through these things before. We are not going to be making, I want to state that we are not, this project will not be approved without a complete seeker review. So if you're going to spend a lot of time telling us how we have to have a completed seeker review prior to us approving this project, I want to let you know that we do understand that, and we are aware of that as a board, and we have no intentions of doing that.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not going to take a long time.
Okay, thank you.
If you'll bear with me. A 100-trailer park, which needs site approval, is a Type 1 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Under 617.12, subdivisions B5 and 8, if you have more than 50 units, which will not be accepted to a community sewage treatment plant and a community existing public water system, then it is a Type 1 action. If this is in fact in an ag district, if you have more than 12 and a half units, then it is a Type 1 action. If this is not an agricultural district, then if you have more than 50 trailers, it is a Type 1 action. When you have a Type 1 action, you must have a coordinated lead agency designation with all the other involved agencies. That is, when you receive a completed environmental assessment form, and the environmental assessment form which I have is dated November 22, 1991, and this is not a completed environmental assessment form, but I understand it's the one before the planning board. You must have this completed with a description of the project. And for a project like this, which is going to use raised beds and individual well or wells on the site to supply the trailer park, then you must have the engineering data generated so that you know whether or not the information which is on the new site plan makes any sense before you can even consider the environmental assessment form. This environmental assessment form has to be circulated to all the involved agencies. In the present case, despite the fact that they're shifting to individual trailer septics, DEC will treat this trailer park as a single entity and will require a speedies permit. So the shift from the package unit to the individual septic systems will not take this out of DEC's jurisdiction with regard to requiring a speedies permit. The health department is involved. Now, whether it's just the county health department or whether it is the county health department and the state health department, depending on their jurisdiction. If there is going to be any charge for utilities on this site, that is for the either the water or the septic, then you have the Public Service Commission involved. And if you have land on this property which has a zero percolation, you may well also be involved with the Army Corps of Engineers, and that is something which would need to be investigated before you can determine whether or not you have a complete application, which means you've got something on the table in front of you that you can work with. Once you've got something you think you can work with, you have to circulate, and assuming they come to you as being the primary involved agency, which would be a logical thing for them to do, you would have to write a letter with the environmental assessment form and whatever other materials you have to the other involved agencies. And you have a couple choices. You can say, do you want to be lead agency? We don't want to be. Or you can say, we propose to be lead agency, but you've got 30 days to tell us whether you want to be lead agency or not. If there is a dispute, there's an appeal mechanism to the Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Conservation. I would not expect there to be a dispute in a case like this. I would think that the Planning Board is a logical board to be the lead agency. When you circulate the package, including the environmental assessment form, it is a good idea if you say, we propose to negative deck the project, that is, say, no environmental impact statement is required, or we think an environmental impact statement should be required, and these are the issues which we see as being the real issues that should be addressed in that environmental impact statement. In this particular case, with the size of the proposal that you're talking about, and no public water system, no public sewer system to which this trailer park can hook up, I don't see how you can avoid having an environmental impact statement prepared with regard to this project. So I would suggest that when you get a complete application in front of you, you take that position and you identify issues: water supply, septic, drainage, transportation, impact on the schools, impact on the fire department, those things that need to be addressed and should be addressed by professionals experienced in the preparation of substantial communities. And a 100 trailer park community is a substantial community. Now, I've mentioned that there is no present environmental assessment form. You have no information with regard to water supply. The fact that you have a zero perk on a portion of the property indicates there are real properties, and I think you correctly pointed out If you have zero perk, you're going to have some other drainage problems, possible standing water at times that need to be addressed.
I think that, just to correct it, I did not state that there is zero perk on the property, that the raised bed system, as I understand it, was explained to me, was going to be designed on the basis of zero perk.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Incidentally, to make her life easy, I'm skipping some of the citations. Effectively, and this hearing and the previous hearing you held can serve a very useful function. You have a good idea of what the community's concerns are with regard to the project, and that can aid you in scoping the draft environmental impact statement that should be required, and that's under section 617.7. Now, what is an environmental impact statement? I'm not going to go into it in detail, but that's set out in section 617.14. Now, if you're going to have an environmental impact statement, you have three choices with regard to how it gets done and how it gets paid for. And if you take a look at section 617.17, it lays out two of these alternatives. Number one, you can require the developer, once he has his proposal, once he has his complete application, you can require the developer to pay the town to hire the consultant to do the environmental impact statement. That is, they give you the money, you hire the consultant, you know what you're going to get in terms of the quality of the product. The other thing you can do is you can let him do the environmental impact statement, and you can hire a consultant at his expense to review the environmental impact statement. The third alternative, and one that is all too frequently done, unfortunately, is to let the taxpayers foot the bill for reviewing the environmental impact statement that's prepared by a developer. Now, it's obvious from what I've seen here of this application that we have a relatively unsophisticated developer. And I would suggest to you that the alternative that this planning board should choose, if it chooses to become lead agency, is alternative number one, that is, you have him put the money up front and you hire the consultant to do the environmental impact statement after you have, and I believe you said you would like a written description of the project to go along with the site plans, together with the new EAF. At that point, I think you should require the developer to give you the money so you can hire the consultant to do the environmental impact statement. Otherwise, the situation you're going to be in is garbage in, garbage out. If you get a lousy environmental impact statement, you can spend a lot of review time, but you're never going to have a decent product. That's basically my evaluation of this project. And I thank you for taking the time to listen to me, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Maria Austin would like to continue to foot the bill. We'd be glad to have this gentleman attend one of our regular meetings and go into more detail on it. I think it would be very useful. Thank you.
Thank all the citizens in this room. I can foot the bill all by myself with a very easy donation.
Is there anybody else who would care to speak at this time?
Hi, I'm Walt Howard. You know, they've talked about the impact Gregory's going to make, but you got to take in consideration that all three sides of the property involving these trailers is agriculturally farmed. There's disking going on that's creating dirt. There's certain orders that go for, it's associated with it, that people in these trailers, if it ever gets there, is going to have to put up with. You know, we're talking one side. Now you got to look at the other way. There will be things that will hamper them also. Dust in the air, noise of tractors, and believe me, it's going to continue on, even if that park's in or out, because that is agriculture all the way around it, and it's active right now. So that's another viewpoint you've got to take in consideration. Thank you.
Anybody else care to speak at this time? Yes, Mr. Lewis.
I just wanted to make one or two brief remarks in response to Dick Brickwitty, who I know and respect as a learned individual in the field of environmental law. who I've had an opportunity to work with in the past. There was a comment made in the course of some of the conversation about a speeding permit from the DEC, and Mr. Gregory in some way wishes to avoid it. That simply isn't so. He knows that he's required to do that, whether it be under the previous plan or the present plan. He fully intends to comply with that 100%. There's no desire on his part, no attempt to avoid that in any way. There's also the impression left that this board is mandated in some fashion to require an environmental impact statement, whether it be at his expense or someone else's expense. That isn't required. That's a judgment you will make in the future, and we're perfectly willing to accept whatever judgment you make. But it isn't mandated by the law. It's something that you, after circulating, that your board, after circulating the information among all the various concerned agencies and evaluating all the comments from everyone who has made a comment, is in a position to make a final judgment. And whatever that is, obviously, all of us here will abide by that. But I didn't want to leave the impression, as may have been left, that this is something, and that this is in the nature of a zone change, and that we're building a project in an area that isn't zoned for that project. That isn't the case. And there is a very, very strong distinction, one that I think you made earlier in that regard, and I didn't want to leave that impression. Otherwise, I want to thank everybody, those who are for us, those who are against us, for being here and for offering their comments and for being part of the process. We're obviously trying to move forward on our project. We know that there are people is very sincerely opposed. There are those who are in favor. We're going to try and work with the board and hopefully with the public to accomplish our purposes. We intend to press forward, and we intend to try and meet all the objections that have been raised to the best of our ability. And we thank the board for being very patient over 2 hearings and listening to all of us on this subject. Thank you.
Do we have anybody else here to speak, comment for or against the project? If not, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I so move.
Have a vote, please.
You second.
Okay. Do we have a second? Gary Standard, second.
Chairman Connolly,
Aye.
Robert Brown,
Aye.
Wayne Pierce, Gary Standard.
Okay, with the closing of the public hearing, as was stated earlier, we are required within 45 days to make a resolution for or against the project. With that in mind, I would like to propose the following resolution, copied to the other board members here. Yeah, you don't have to. There you go. This is a resolution regarding a request by Harry and Roger Gregory for site plan approval for proposed 100-unit mobile home park on County Route 6. Be it resolved that regarding site plan request submitted by Mr. Harry and Roger Gregory, due to the fact that a site plan and accessory material has been submitted to the planning board, that this plan reflected the construction of a sewage treatment plant to handle organic waste. A seeker form was prepared and submitted to involved agencies based on the assumption that a sewage treatment plant would be constructed to handle organic wastes. On or about May 13th, after a public hearing was opened on this proposed site plan, the developer made the decision to change the means by which organic waste would be handled. It is the feeling of the planning board that these changes are substantial and render the present plans and seeker submission inaccurate. For this reason, the planning board denies the present application for site plan approval. Upon resubmission of signed and stamped site plans, a revised and completed seeker form, a study regarding the handling of drainage, submission of test well results, which I think we received, written explanation on how organic waste will be handled with sample designs prepared by a professional in the field, and a conceptual approval from Bruce Stillman. Once these documents are submitted, the planning board will immediately then reconsider this project. Do I have discussion regarding this resolution?
Bill has some comments on some of that. I asked if you wanted to draw his plans and start all over again, give him the option to do it. Or, yeah. Is everything, all your information from your, what can we comment to the public?
Do you want to comment on this resolution?
No, not really.
Why don't we deal with the resolution first and then comment to the public if you like?
Who's the submission of this road for your leach field? It has nothing to do with your water supply.
These are some initial things that we're going to need to even begin this submission, but we will also, if you require further information, we will also require further. We're just going back to square one on this.
I would take the submission of Tesla as their water. He gave us the perk test already. So this new one is on well water.
Test well results.
Test well results would be on water. When you said that, you said in between there that you have again.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was incorrect on that. Tell me you got a copy of it before I got it?
This one here?
Is that an old one?
That's the old one.
Oh, okay.
He's supposed to have that letter there for new construction, $10,000. You have professional drawing, front end, and then it's going to handle it under here.
A revised completed, upon resubmission of signed and stamped site plans, revised and completed seeker form, study regarding the handling of drainage, submission of test well results, written explanation on how organic waste will be handled with sample design prepared by a professional in the field, and conceptual approval from Bruce Stillman. That will begin the process.
Signed and stamped site plan for the engineering. Certified.
You want to say certified?
Like to do different.
How about site plans by certified professional? By certified surveyor.
The engineering survey is certified as the address. You don't do that by just signing the stamp. If you look on other site plans, the sign is going to be certified.
Let's turn this logic down.
Okay. This is going to turn it down. Okay.
Do I have a second on this motion? Okay, a second by Bill Pierce.
Chairman Conley,
Aye.
Robert Brown,
Aye.
William Pierce,
Aye.
Gary Stevens.
Okay. I have copies of the proposed resolution if anybody wants to.
Is that what this vote means? Could you clarify it
The
for us?
project has been turned down due to the fact that there were substantial changes made. When I set up a public hearing, originally it was based on a site plan that we had at that time. Substantial changes have been made to that site plan. There's nothing wrong with that, but then we have to deal with the matter that's before us, and I'm sorry that that was somewhat confusing. But we have to deal with what was on our table at the time we scheduled the meeting. You know, I can't schedule a meeting, have you people come to it, discuss a project with you, and then after the meeting's adjourned, change the project. I don't think that's correct. So we then have to deal with what we dealt with. We could have adjourned this hearing and gone on forever. I don't think that's the proper way to handle it. We basically closed the hearing, we turned down this site plan. We have three things we can do. We can approve a site plan, turn it down, or approve it with modifications. Now the developer basically has already begun the process. He has to then resubmit the plans to us, resubmit the seeker, which I believe he has done. We will then mail that. We have to resubmit the material to the county planning board, get their review. At the same time, if he wants to, he can begin review with the CPA.
You're not going to vote within 45 days, right?
We just did.
Okay.
We turned it down.
This is a whole new public hearing again, right?
Now, as I said earlier at the meeting, if this material is submitted to us within a timely manner, might be possible that we may combine the public hearing with a ZBA public hearing regarding the special use permit.
But there will be another public hearing.
Yes, absolutely, because they also require special use permit. Okay? Any other quick questions here before we go on to other business? Okay, well, those of you who have spoke regarding this project, I appreciate the time you've taken. I appreciate your input. Your input has been helpful, you know, and all I can say is that we do listen to what you have to say. There's a lot of questions here. You have brought up some good points, and we will try to act on them. Although we do have a job that we have to do, and people do have certain rights under the property that they own. Thank you very much. What's that? Okay, let me make sure, Marie, that I have enough copies first, okay? I don't have access to the copying machine tonight. Well, if he wants to turn it on, I'll be glad to give you a copy, and you can make copies, you know.
Can we get a copy of the resolution?
Yes, sir. It's right here. You understand what we did tonight? Yes. If you can get this done quick enough. We'll go right ahead. Okay. But I feel that we had to close what was before us. Okay, thank you. We have a second public hearing tonight. We have to have a resolution to open the second public hearing? Okay. I'd like to open the second public hearing. Now, what the second public hearing involves is a request by a company referred to as 9X Mobile Communications to erect a tower on an approximately 4-acre piece of land off of Mullen Road near where the Owens Road is. The Owens Road, right? Yeah, the Owens Road. It's, the tower will be approximately 300 feet high. Approximately how far off the Mullen Road will that be again?
About 1,600 feet in from Mullen Road to the property.
For those of you who may be interested, it's going to be a good 1,600 feet off of Mullen Road, so it will not, the top of the tower may be visible, but the tower will probably not be visible from Mullen Road. It would be visible from Route 481. We have submitted this project before the Oswego County Planning Board, and we have received a response from them, which I'll read.
Thank you.
The above referenced matter was submitted to the Oswego County Planning Board for review pursuant to Article 12D, Section 239 of the New York State General Municipal Law. The applicant is requesting site plan for a proposed 300-foot freestanding communication tower and an 11-foot by 26-foot equipment shelter on property located on the north side of Mullen Road, approximately 1,500 feet west of Town Line Road in an agricultural zoning district. Based on information submitted, which documents that the FAA application process is being complied with and that aircraft communications will apparently not be affected by the tower, the Oswego County Planning Board considered this matter at its meeting on May 5th, 1992, and recommends approval subject to the applicant receiving the Federal Aviation Administration approval. I'd just like to make a couple comments before we proceed. We have been assured that this tower will not emit any noise. The tower is not manned. There'll be an occasional person will visit it on occasion, but there is no activity going on at the tower. It is an unmanned building. It will be fenced. We have been assured that it will have no impact on anybody's television reception, no impact on anybody's radio reception. It does not emit any waves that are in any way harmful. The major concern was planes flying overhead, landing at the Fulton Airport. Will it have any impact on their communications? It does not. The intention of the tower is to broaden the area in which people who have cellular phones can communicate clearly with other people. The tower is surrounded by woods, I believe.
On all sides.
On all sides. The area, there is no water taken or drained on the surface. There is no septic of any kind. There is no any utilities, which I believe there'll be an electrical line going to it. It'll be underground. The impact on the area along Mullen Road, it will be nothing more than a small road extending back to the site. We covered that at the last meeting we had, and I just thought I'd inform you people regarding this project. With that in mind, sir, would you like to speak?
My name is Mark Cornwell. I'm a real estate project manager for 9X Mobile Communications. I represent the applicant. The applicant is, although it's applied for under the name of 9X Mobile Communications, I'd like to clarify a little bit more about who the applicant is in this case. The applicant is technically the license holder for the provision of cellular telephone service in central New York, and it's technically Syracuse SMSA Limited Partnership, of which 9X Mobile Communications is a general partner, and we have the authority of the partnership to enter into purchases for properties and approvals for expansion of our telephone network. I just want to clarify that you may see New York Slider Geographic Service Area is a wholly owned subsidiary of 9X Mobile, the legal entity under which we do business. Some of these names may pop up in some different documents, and essentially we're all three in the same. 9X Mobile Communications, New York Slider Geographic Service Area, and then the license holder, which is the partnership of Syracuse SMSA Partnership. I'd like to introduce some of the people that I have with me tonight. First of all, we have Joe Berberian, who is a network engineer for 9X Mobile Communications. Joe is responsible for network design. If you have any questions about how the slider system operates, how we came to select this particular location, Joe can answer questions regarding that. Also have with me Mr. Kevin Farrington. He works with the firm of Urban Anthony Associates. Urban Anthony is a consulting engineering firm. Urban Anthony prepared the site plan drawings for the site, and we'll go over the site plan that we have for you tonight. And also our attorney, Mr. Robert Hornick, is here, and he can answer any questions if any issues arise regarding the application for the site. We're here only for a site plan review this evening. I believe at the last hearing we've probably gone over some background information about how the slider system operates. It seems you have a pretty clear understanding of what we're trying to do. I'd just like to show you quickly a regional map showing how this particular site fits into the grid network of sites that we operate in central New York. This is the map of the entire central New York slider region, which consists of Onondaga, Madison, and Oswego counties. Slider networks operate on a grid of towers that operate at relatively low transmission power levels and transmit to a very short distance from the tower. In order to make the system work properly so that as people using cellular telephones travel through the region and can use their phone continuously, we must have an even coverage of signal across the region. We've been experiencing a problem in the Fulton, Route 57, Route 481 corridor along the river for quite some time. We're still in the growth phase of the system. We're trying to put in sites that are going to provide continuous coverage throughout the region. The Fulton site, Volney site, which is located right here, will fill in a very large hole which exists between the Scriba site that we have to the north, a Van Buren site that we have to the south, and a Mexico site that we have to the east. We have some other computer models that we can show to demonstrate the need for this tower in the area and how this particular location will fill in the service problems that we have in this region. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Varian so we can give some information about the needs of the site.
Before we speak, can I just say something about the
You're going to make copies?
I already gave her copies.
May I have that back?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just make one comment. You did mention that we're planning on delivering utilities to the site underground. At this point, we're not sure how the utilities are going to be delivered onto the site. I think we can go into that in more detail when we go over the site plan. I think we'll kind of be at the mercy of Niagara Mohawk in determining how the utilities will be delivered, either a pole run or underground. We're not sure at this point.
Okay. My name is Joe Barbarian. As Mark said, I am the radio frequency engineer for NINEX Mobile Communications. So basically, one of the most important things that's involved in building a site is the customer complaints. We have gotten a lot of customer complaints saying that we have poor to no service in the Fulton, Volney area along Route 481, 48, Route 3, Route 57. And once we receive one of those complaints, the engineers look at maps and decide what's the ultimate site or one of the best sites that we can go with to provide coverage to those areas. And basically, for low-lying areas, it comes down to a geometry type problem. We want to cover between these two sites. We looked at areas in the middle, and this area here, right off Town Line Road, is one that we came up with. I have a list here, I don't know if you're interested or not, but there's a list here of propagation models that are performed on computer which predict the signal. The orange areas here are areas which have good coverage, and the green and blue areas are areas which have insufficient or inadequate coverage. You'll get crackling, you won't be able to make a call in some instances at all, especially in the bluer areas. This is our present network as it exists right now, and this is what our proposed site will cover, the large coverage area. And this third map will show how it fits in well with the other systems, the other cell sites.
I misspoke. You refer to it as Town Line Road. I think I said Mullen Road.
Is it Mullen Road?
It's Great Bear Road. It's Great Bear and Mullen Road. Okay, you call it Town Line Road, maybe the correct. Everybody, I think most people refer to it as Great Bear Road. I believe that the property adjoining that at this time is an abandoned gravel pit.
The property to the south is
Right.
property that's owned by
There are a
Barrett
couple
Paving.
times it's the old abandoned gravel pit.
I think we showed that one. Sure. This one, I'll turn it over to Mr. Barrington so we can go over the site plan for you.
My name's Kevin Farrington. As you've been told, I'm with Erdman Anthony and Associates out of Rochester, New York. We've done the engineering on this site as we do for a number of sites for NINEX Mobile. I'm going to be very brief since you've covered much of the information that was presented at the last meeting. We are providing access off from Mullen Road, approximately 2,000 feet plus or minus from Great Bear Road, or as you say, in many maps it's shown as also parenthetically Town Line Road. There'll be an access drive from Mullen Road back about 1,600 feet, just over 1,600 feet to the property itself. The tower will sit another 360 feet back, making the total distance from Mullen Road in the neighborhood of 1,950 feet to actually close to 2,000 feet once you go to the center line of Mullen Road. It'll be a stone and gravel drive, basically gravel base with a stone top. There will be a turnaround area provided for vehicles site, as you say, as you mentioned, is surrounded by a 7-foot high security fence to prevent access to the site by unauthorized people. The site is gated. The building itself is also locked on the site and is alarmed for intrusion. There's a security light on the building also, so that anybody approaching the site can tell somebody's there or not. The tower is a 300-foot tower proposed. It's generally provided by one of two well-known manufacturers of freestanding steel towers. They also make guide towers, but NIAX generally goes with freestanding towers, either Roan or Andrews. And we provide them with information concerning the soils so that they can develop their foundation design. We provide them with a design report, so the foundations for the tower and the structure themselves are investigated and designed by professional engineers. That basically covers the site. If the board or eventually the public have any questions concerning the site itself, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody on any other members of the board have any questions?
On the tower itself, I see a lot of towers around nowadays that they try to make them conform with the rest of the area, and they look like they rust. Obviously, they maybe they aren't rusting, but they're trying to make it look like that. A lot of the utility people are putting up towers like this. Similar to that, or is yours a galvanized type of tower?
This is a galvanized tower, and it will, because the type required to be painted by FAA regulations.
So the alternating bands of the aviation orange and white bands.
The towers you're talking about are generally shorter, much shorter.
Okay. One clarification, Kevin mentioned that the building has an alarm system built in. This is not an audible or lighting alarm, it's remotely monitored. We centrally monitor all of our sites from a location in Syracuse, and if the building is entered illegally or by an unauthorized person, will set up an alarm at that location. Won't see anything that's been disturbing neighbors in the nearby area. They won't hear anything.
How often are these buildings spent? Is it a maintenance program, or is it just by fault?
Well, they're monitored 24 hours a day in terms of systems operation. But in terms of on-site maintenance, typically about 3 times a month we'll have a maintenance person come out.
12 months a year, wintertime also?
Year-round, year-round. And we'll be maintaining the road into the site, we'll have access to it year-round. People by plowing the road.
Cable TV used on towers? Could they be used on the same towers?
Are you asking if we would allow a cable TV system to go on the same tower that we are on? That's something that we're looking into, allowing other commercial uses on our tower. Right now, we haven't allowed other commercial development on our towers. One thing that we do, and we do on a very regular basis, is we look for other types of municipal uses where it could benefit the local community. If a police agency, fire department, emergency services, ambulance service want to use the tower, we quite often offer that space to those services for free as public relations. But as far as other types of commercial development, it's something that we don't do up to now. We may in the future look into that. But it would be possible, I think, for like a cable TV company or a paging company to use the same tower. It's conceivable.
I think it'd be beneficial instead of having a bunch of towers around it, to have one main tower that will serve everybody in the future.
It's not impossible to allow other types of use on the tower. There's just have to make sure that different types of equipment are compatible. There's no interference problem.
Anybody in the audience have any questions or comments for or against the project? Yes, sir. Can I have your name, please?
Yeah, Joe Fowler. I represent my parents, Ray and Mary Fowler, whose property adjoins Mr. Wallace's to the north. The only question I have is, how far south of the property line is it?
We're talking about your property is, okay, right here, Raymond and Mary Fowler.
Right.
We're looking at about 175 feet on center line from the property line to the center of the tower. If I could, Mr. Chairman, I think our attorney would like to make a few comments about some of the site plan considerations.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, I'm Bob Volney. I'm an attorney representing Syracuse FMSA Partnership and NIAX Mobile Communications this evening. And just very briefly, that are always in front of planning boards and zoning boards of appeals. Your zoning ordinance spells out really three other considerations, and my purpose is really just to elaborate on what's already been said, to show how the plan addresses those issues. The first issue is traffic access to the site. As you can see, through the right-of-way that leads back to the site, there will be traffic access to the site, and as Mr. Cornell's already expressed, during the winter months, the applicant will be maintaining that access route so that there is access for its maintenance vehicles and any other kinds of vehicles that might need to get back there. The right-of-way will be, as you can see from the sections on the side, will be improved in such a way as to ensure that there's not going to be ruts, gaps, potholes, whatever that would make the site somehow inaccessible. The improved portion of the right-of-way itself is going to be 25 feet wide, so that if necessary, more than one vehicle to get back there, or vehicles could pass on the way back there. It will be graded so that there will be an adequate drainage off to the sides of the site. Mullen Road is basically a straight run in this area so that visibility from the access road onto Mullen Road in both directions ought not to be a problem. Additionally, to set far enough back from the Great Bear Road or Town Line Road intersection so that to address that consideration that is spelled out in your zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance says that the access to the road shouldn't be too near an intersection. Another consideration of your zoning ordinance regarding site plan approval is circulation and parking at the site. There's really going to be nobody at the site except for those periods of time where the maintenance personnel might be there. In effect, as you can see on the site layout plan more closely, there's room for parking for at least 2 vehicles in the turnaround section. I think under your zoning ordinance, there really would only be requirement for 1 parking space. That would be for the employee who may be there servicing. There is, in fact, room for at least 2 vehicles. There is a 20-foot wide by 20-foot deep turnaround spot here, which will comply with the requirements of your zoning ordinance for 2 parking spaces. And once again, this site is designed so that vehicles can pull in, turn around, and come back out the right-of-way facing the right direction. There's no necessity for backing out or anything like that. The last criterion in your zoning ordinance is landscaping and screening. As Mr. Cornell and Mr. Farrington have already stated, the site is basically surrounded by a wooded area. It's set back sufficiently far from the road that the tower itself may not be visible. Except for perhaps the very upper portion of the tower will be visible from the road and from, we suspect, the nearest residences, which are probably 2,000 feet away. So that just a natural screening together with the fencing that will provide security for the actual physical plant that will be there. We should submit to the board sufficient screening at the site. Additionally, the structures meet the applicable setback requirements for the agricultural zoning district as set forth in your area and bulk requirements under the zoning law. And one last point is that obviously, in terms of the height of the structure and painting of the structure, we will be subject to FAA regulation on that, and we'll be forced to, by law, comply with whatever they require of us in terms of the height of the structure and painting on the structure, so that there will be a maximum of 300 feet of tower, and I guess the antenna will be up to 14 feet on top of that. So the maximum height of the complete structure will be 14 feet, and that's dependent on FAA approval. But they may approve something less than that.
Mr. Fowler, is the statement relatively correct that there's approximately 2,000 feet from the nearest, let's say, your parents' house?
Yes.
So your parents' houses are not right on the property line then? And is that area of your property pretty much wooded as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are your parents, are they opposed to this project, or do they have any strong opposition to it? Are they non-committal, or?
Right now, they're non-committal.
We did prepare some packages to leave for the board with some of the exhibits, copies of the application, and some copies for all board members. One of the exhibits is a copy of telephone service is considered to be an essential service in New York State and elsewhere because of the quality of, that it offers to the community, including the quality of life it offers to the community. So it's considered to be a public utility. And we are regulated by the New York State Public Service Commission for rates. Therefore, I believe we're approved use in all districts in the town of Volney.
The type of equipment that's in this building that you have, is there any chance at all, or what would happen in case of a fire inside the building, in the equipment? Is it the type of equipment that would just blow some fuses and that would be it? Or would there actually be fire where the town of Volney would be expected to come and fight that fire?
There is a halogen fire extinguisher system built into the building. Will probably not be necessary. The building itself should be non-flammable. It's a non-flammable structure.
The building itself is a prefabricated concrete structure
with a halogen system built in.
So the chances are nil, probably, of the town of Volney having to provide fire protection. In other words, I'm thinking about a fire truck going down there to fight a fire.
Highly
Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to speak for or against this project? Yes?
I live near the area there, and we frequently use Mullen Road for recreational purposes, jogging and biking. You mentioned in the event that you did decide to allow the tower to be used for other commercial purposes, what protection would, say, the adjacent property owners or people around there have about the increased traffic flow? What would happen if they were to, what would be restrictions? Could they put restrictions on traffic flow, or how would that be handled?
What I understand is after construction, the traffic flow will be increased, is negligible because there'll only be one truck going to it, I believe you said 3 times a month.
No, in the event that they, Bill had mentioned about possible cable use or cable television use of the tower in the event that they decided to use the tower or sell, I don't know how you sell tower space or whatever, but if it were used in that instance, what would the property owners or surrounding people, would they have input at that time to?
What we could do is, if such a project was approved, we can consider a contingency that if substantial increase in use of the tower beyond what was originally requested takes place, that we request they revisit the planning board. That would then give us a chance to review the project again if it looks like there's going to be a lot more going on there than what they originally proposed. That would be a possibility, I would believe. Do you have any comments?
I think we would expect that if another tenant were to go in and want to lease tower space, they would require to have their own building on site, which I'm sure would require site plan review before the planning board, so it would be reviewed, I'm sure.
So you're saying that if you were to lease space on the tower, your building would not be, or there would have to be additional construction?
We could not allow additional use within our own structure, so they would be required to put up their own building.
In the area that we live in, we have a lot of recreational vehicles here, snowmobiles and three-wheelers and et cetera. What's going to happen if they start using your private road?
Well, the plan is for a gate only at the property line at this time. The property is gated at the present time, and we could certainly install a gate at Mullen Road with the permission of the property owner, and secure it such a way that we would only us and the property owner would have access.
I personally, I'm not a snowmobiler, by the way, but I personally would not have any objections. I was wondering what NINEX thought about people using that as a recreational road. In other words, to get to someplace else where they want to go, wherever they
We know that the property owner is using it right now for that purpose, and he hunts on the property in there, and we've discussed his ability to come back in and walk on the parcel in the back and hunt on our parcel. We have no objection at all. We're not posting the property.
Has he granted you legal easement to the parcel in the back? Is that correct?
That will be part of the purchase. Purchase is contingent upon receiving approval.
Now, is there some type of gas line or something that crosses the property? I'm noticing that partway back you have something going across the road rather.
Well, there's a break line that foreshortens the distance at that scale. The sheet is simply not large enough.
So there are no, there is nothing that crosses that?
Nothing
of record.
across the road from there. Unless I'm mistaken, they're waiting for approval. Now, if they're waiting for approval, what's all this land work going on back there, pushing dirt around and widening the road, if it hasn't been approved yet?
Mr. Wallace is doing improvements on his property, and it's not on the property that we're proposing to purchase.
It's
Mr.
the
Wallace.
same road you're talking about right
Yes,
there.
it is. Yes, it is. He is making improvements on this parcel to the front and on this roadway. I believe Mr. Wallace may have some future plans of his own for developing that front parcel. But we were only talking about purchasing this rear parcel, which is essentially a landlocked parcel, and we will be using this roadway in common with Mr. Wallace as the property owner.
If you have any complaints, I would suggest the code enforcement officers you guys talk to. That's your enforcement arm with the town.
Okay.
Mr. Rose?
Yes, Howard Rowe. I just have a question concerning the halogen you mentioned. Yeah. My understanding of halogen is it's being phased out and won't be able to use that for much longer, if at all now, because of the ozone problems and so on, that the EPA has outlawed it, so to speak. Are you aware of that? And if so, what is the alternative to that?
I have to make the same comment I heard made earlier today. I'm not an engineer, and I'm not aware of that. I'm sure that as a business that we operate, we would want to remain in compliance with any laws that are out there. If it meant removing a halogen system and replacing with other state-of-the-art, we would do that. We would remain in compliance.
That's what I mentioned that for information.
Thank you. I wasn't aware of it.
Yes, sir.
Shirley Reynolds. My name is Shirley Reynolds on East River Road.
You live on where, I'm sorry?
East River Road. If I'm not mistaken, when you put up a tower, you have to have a grounding radius too with copper wire underground as a radius for electrical lightning. How much copper do you plan on putting
I think
copper
Mr. Barrington can
underground?
answer questions about grounding systems on the site.
All towers have a grounding system that's in attendance with the tower and the building. The equipment in the building also must be grounded. The fence also must be grounded. And with no exceptions on the some 3 dozen sites that I've worked on, we've been able to accommodate the grounding system within the fence portion of the site.
So you're not putting a gridlock of copper underground under the dirt?
There is a grid of copper wires underground that connect the grounding rods themselves. And these are 10-foot long rods, but they are all contained within the fence portion of the site.
Because the reason I'm saying is being familiar with radio station broadcasting towers, you have to have within 1,000 feet of copper underground, let's say about 2.5, 3 feet spaced apart as a gridlock for static electricity striking the tower, lightning striking the tower.
What you're referring to is what's commonly referred to, I believe, as a mass system of grounding, which is not generally the way NYNEX grounds a tower, or most installers in this area. They use ground rods, which are copper-clad steel rods, 10-foot long, that are driven into the ground, much more effective than simple copper wires. And what we ground to is a standard of 5 ohms.
Now, is that copper with brass?
The rods themselves are copper-clad steel. I don't believe there's brass introduced into the mixture on the copper, and the wire is number 2 copper wire that connects them together, and they're all CAD welded together rather than mechanical connections.
Anybody else in the audience have any comments regarding this? Yes, sir.
My name is Tom Hood. I live on the Great Bear Road.
I'm sorry, Tom?
Tom Hood.
Hood?
I live on the Great Bear Road, just as I am there. I purchased my property from Earl Wallace, who I think NYNEX purchased the property from. And I just wanted to continue on what Mike said here. He put that road in there strictly for NYNEX. Okay, I used to like the man, but anymore things have been very shady. Gravel bed is still being used, and I think the Barretts own the other end of the gravel bed. My property runs into the gravel bed. Earl Wallace owns that. The gravel bed is still being operated. It was supposed to be closed down years ago. But my feeling on this situation is nobody do nothing. Now we got a road the size of Mullen Road going back into the woods there. And
And I'm just wondering what's going to happen in the future with this. I mean, we already got Millers, we already got Owens, Illinois down there. Now we're going to have a tower out in our backyard. I mean, it seems like it's very shady. I mean, it's not a way to do business.
Are you saying on the point of Mr. Wallace?
Well, I'm saying the point, yes. I mean, everything, when I first purchased my property, I extremely liked the man a lot, but anymore, I'm getting very upset with everything that's going around. I mean, I understand these people purchased land. Well, Mr. Streeter, I know, tried to purchase that land from Mr. Wallace when he first moved out there, and he would not sell it. I mean, how would Mr. Wallace like this? I wish he was here tonight, but how would he like this going up next to his house, or behind his house? I mean,
The property is zoned agricultural, so I don't think you got to worry about a factory going in there. Or if it does happen, you would have every opportunity to comment on it. In reference to mining.
He's already talking about putting a mobile home park in the gravel bed where we are, and that's, you know, it's...
How far away is your home from the site?
I don't know the exact approximation, but I own a little bit of the gravel bed, so I live on Great Bear Road, so I don't know how many feet it would be, but it's back in the woods.
Approximately 2,000 feet. Does that sound approximately right?
Yeah, probably, yeah. But he's literally destroyed. I know it's his land, but he's destroyed the land out there.
I agree with you regarding the gravel bed. It's not very pleasant.
No, it's not.
Is there any other comments from the public? Well, let me just ask this though, Mr. Hood. Are you opposed to this project? Are you for the project, or are you commenting basically on certain things you're upset about regarding the landowner?
Well, I'm commenting on both. I'm opposed to it. I bought the house at the time because it's a dead-end road. I bought it to be left alone and to be out in the country. And now with all this stuff going on, you know, I knew Owens, Illinois is there, now Miller's there. Now, you know, nothing against 9X. My brother works for MCI, you know. But putting up a tower right in my backyard, I mean, you know, yes,
Are you across the street, or are you on the same side of the street as gravel pit? You must be on the same side. Okay. You're going to the dead end. Are you just before the entrance to the gravel pit, the old entrance?
Well, there's probably, yeah, the main entrance is on Mullen Road. Okay, and that's, but there's a couple roads. In fact, I've got a road on my back property that runs in the gravel bed. And there's another road way down at the end where it's a dead end.
So basically, though, they are on the other side of the gravel bed, away from you.
They'll be in the woods.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Have your name, please.
Gloria Clark. Okay, how are they going to guarantee if there's going to be no interference with our televisions or anybody that has satellite dishes out there and stuff?
Well, 9X Mobile is granted by the FCC a certain range of frequencies. Within a certain frequencies range, the only thing we can use, just like telephones, just like garage door openers, everything, they have a certain frequency range. We use FCC type equipment, which means that once our signal leaves, as it's leaving our radio equipment, every other frequency is muted out. So only the frequencies we're allowed to transmit at are transmitted out. So as long as the equipment that you have, like the television set, the cable TV station, is operating at its allotted frequency, which it should under FCC rules, there'll be no interference.
Right, but see, we don't get cable. We've got 3, 5, and 9. And
it's any TV station.
Right, but I mean, for some reason they shut it in or something. I mean, we lose our TVs, we ain't got nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of want to look
I understand.
Yeah.
Our equipment is designed so that we only transmit at our frequencies, and we do not interfere with any other television, radio, anything.
Donald Clark, Mullen Road. You're saying low power output.
Yes.
How much power is that?
We transmit at 100 watts per channel. We are designing the site to go up at about 15 channels, so it'll be 1,500 watts.
At what band?
Between 880 and 890 megahertz band.
Okay.
That's very high frequency.
You're talking there's no harmonics involved here?
No, any of the harmonics that come out are siphoned by our filter, by our
None would end up emitting into our immediate area?
Yes, if we have a bandpass filters only which any frequency outside of our frequency range is filtered out. So we only can remit in our frequency range. Thank you. That's it. Good point.
There's a problem, it's in the minutes, so make sure you get a copy of them and hold them at your house, and if there's any problems, you got it documented that that's what they said that's gonna happen.
If there's a problem, we'll be glad to, if there is a problem, there won't be, but if there is, we'll be glad to work it out. If you
Well,
just
if you
notify the town.
down the road or something pops
Okay, yes.
up and everybody starts.
Yeah, as far as we're concerned, and we have many of these sites up in the area, and there's no.
Like you people, we like to sit, you know, get out away from people.
Oh, I sit in front of the TV.
We operate about 300 of these sites across the Northeast, and actually probably more than 300 at this time. And we really don't experience any problems with causing interference. And we're very sensitive to a lot of different kinds of communications. It's not just residential, TV and radio, but there's a lot of different kinds of really critical two-way communications out there, police, fire, emergency systems. And we have to be very careful that we don't interfere. We also don't want anybody interfering with our signal. So we're very careful to design the network so it doesn't cause interference or is interfered with.
What other problems have you had on these 300 sites? Nothing, right?
Well, I don't know what you mean.
Vandalism, et cetera, I mean,
I don't know about any real problems we have. The buildings themselves are relatively bulletproof, and we do that because most of the buildings are placed in a rural site. So we've had some that have been shot at, but
no windows.
There are no windows in the building. It's a concrete structure. It's got a rough granite finish on the outside.
Yeah, I think I've been ready for the building.
There are several sites that are in Oswego County that either have been considered or are under consideration at this time. I believe it's one around Parish or something like that, or isn't there? I know the county planning board told me they were dealing with a couple sites.
I believe our competitor, who's also licensed to provide services, looking for sites in this region also.
Okay, and so the county has been involved with it, and they assured me when I spoke to them that they haven't received any complaints at this time, because that was one of the very first things I think we brought out when they first came before us.
We also have sites that were previously approved in Scribe, Mexico, and Hastings.
That's it, Mexico.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other comments from the audience regarding this project?
I just have one question.
Yes, sir.
Terry Reynolds. Say like the fire control, Wilkes County Fire Control wanted to use the tower for this area. Would you allow them to use part of the tower for repeater?
Yes. Yes. In fact, we at 2 municipalities, we offer the tower space for free.
Because
and if anybody wanted to approach me,
they were talking about someplace in this area putting up another tower for closer response.
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand what your question is.
Well, they have so many towers in Oswego County, and like my pager here is weak on a signal for coming from Oswego.
Yeah, if they want to operate a repeater station at one of our sites, we'd be happy to discuss it with them.
Okay.
You can put them directly in touch with me.
Okay, if there's no other comments, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing. Yes, sir.
Just one point, I just want to make sure, because I know it came up in the last public hearing, and I just offer for your, I guess, entertainment anyway, is that you also have to do a seeker determination on this application, and under the seeker regulations, that's Part 617, Mr. Brickwood, he had the green book here today. According to my review, this would be considered an unlisted action. We submit that the planning board, as the only agency that has authority to grant or deny this application, should be declared the lead agency. And we submit that based on all the information that's been presented to you, that you are in a position to make a negative declaration, that is that there is no significant adverse impact on the environment associated with this proposal, and that those determinations have to be made before you make any determination on the final, whether to grant or deny the application. I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that. Thank you.
That's a good question I wanted to ask you. You're saying that this has been dealt with in other locations as an unlisted action?
Well, if you look under the Part 617 regulations, which Mr. Brickwitty's volume actually had more than just Part 617, but I've got 617 here. And Part 617 has in it under 617.12, those things which are considered type 1 actions. And part 617.13, those types of actions which are considered type 2 actions. And my review indicates that this proposal, this type of proposal, is not listed on either the type 1 action list or the type 2 action list, and therefore is an unlisted action. And that's the way the secret regulations work, and insofar as whether your action is a type 1 action or a type 2 action or an unlisted action.
Saying exempt?
Not exempt, but an unlisted action, which doesn't mean that you don't have to do an environmental review, but rather it means that you have to review the full environmental assessment form, which was part of our original application, to fill out Part B or Part C, whichever is the part that the lead agency needs to complete, I forget offhand, and answer those questions appropriately. It's the applicant's position that, based on the information we've given you, that you can answer all those questions, all those applicable questions in the negative, and therefore determine that there will be no significant adverse impact on the environment, and that no draft environmental impact statements and full environmental impact statements and that whole process is necessary. Rather that you can determine, based on the information that we've already presented, that there will be no significant adverse impact on the environment, which is the finding that you need to make under the State Environmental Quality Review Act.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If the board doesn't have any other questions, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
I so move.
Second.
Chairman Conley,
Aye.
Robert Brown,
Aye.
William Pierce,
Aye.
Gary Sanders.
Okay, thank you very much. We will probably be making our decision at the next regular meeting of the board. It'll be on the third Tuesday of the month. If you want to contact me prior to that, that'll be fine.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to open up the meeting, open up our regular meeting tonight. Have we received, Marie, have we gotten back a copy of that secret? Okay, I just thought you were heading towards the door there, and I didn't want to...
I was watching. I always watch it.
Thank you very much for your vote.
Okay, why don't you give this to Howard? This is something that we'll probably have to pass tonight regarding some adjustments in zoning law.
Thank you.
Couldn't you put a staple in it for me?
There's no statement in there.
Did they?
Okay.
We're gonna write it down.
How you explain that?
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Besides the county planning board, who would be involved in the AKA? Because I may have missed one. That's no more.
County planning board, we've got a
I
county.
talked to the county planning board, and they said that it's kind of optional, and I wanted to get with you guys on that.
That's what I'm saying.
Because there's nothing, because of the fact that it's air, water, sound, there's nothing, no noise.
Yeah,
So I wanted to get with you guys on that.
As an unlisted action, I do an awful lot of environmental stuff. Controversy, and there seems to be a lot of expertise involved, and perhaps some real
Why don't you give me a notice of negative declaration? Okay, form letter resolution, notice of negative declaration, and then the second part of that. Yeah, that would be all.
Because all you have to do is, the notice of action is file that with basically your foot.
Okay.
Because the notice of action, so have to go through the rigmarole of Mr. Brickley, who's correct about the other applications, type 1, there were 5 or 6 days before you have to file and notify and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now I'd like to open this up for our regular board meeting tonight. In order to move things along here, we do have some people still waiting. They've waited very patiently. We want to dispense with approval of the minutes at this time. The only one I was wondering is, what about the one we still haven't, I believe there's still one from March.
March 17th.
March
We haven't
17th.
approved March 17th.
Or April 21st, or April 28th.
I've had an opportunity to review the March 17th, and is there any objections to approving the minutes for the March 17th meeting?
Hang on just a second. No, I don't have comments on that.
Okay, with no comments, can I entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the March 17th planning board meeting?
I'll make the motion that we approve March 17th minutes meeting.
Have a second, please?
I'll second that.
Chairman Conley,
Aye.
Robert Brown.
Aye.
William Pierce.
Aye.
Gary Scanner.
Aye. Okay, that was easy. Right. Okay, we'll hold off on the April meeting until we have more time to read them, okay? Regarding old business, we do have an outstanding application for subdivision approval that has been presented to us by Mr. Sean Deasy. We have originally dealt with this matter a couple months ago, but there was a question regarding the legality of the overall landowner, Mr. Rizzo, to re-subdivide property which had already been given site plan approval. Basically, we gave him approval to cut his property into a certain number of lots. We perceived at that time that the, not conditions, the contingencies by which the subdivision had been issued had eliminated the possibility of further subdivision of property. That's not in any way to jeopardize landowners, but just to help the board to get an overall feel for how development in the town is taking place. After that was reviewed, it was determined that what we perceived to be a contingency limiting further subdivision review was really not clearly spelled out, and upon receiving a legal opinion, we then basically backed off that, I guess you can call it. With that in mind, Mr. Deasy has come before us requesting subdivision approval to split, I believe it's overall, is it 9 or 10 acres, right?
A little over 10 acres.
10 acres into 2 parcels, one of which would be approximately 7 acres, and one of which would be approximately 3.5 acres. In a letter to the planning board, he stated, I request permission to subdivide my 10.47 acre lot on Maple Ave, town of Volney. I will be breaking the parcel into 2 lots as shown on the attached survey maps. The plan is to sell off the front lot and to keep the rest of the parcel for my home, for my own home, which will be built at the back of the property as indicated on the survey. I will be developing the land with environment in mind. Tree cutting will be kept to a minimum to allow for maintaining the lots secluded. Mr. Deasy, do you have anything you'd like to say at this time? Well, we've had chances to talk in the past, obviously. Does any other board members have any comments regarding this request?
I'm confused, as normal, on the site plan submittal that we have here. I'm hearing that we're going to have a right-of-way on another piece of property going to this.
Yeah, there'll be an easement for both lots. Like there is in front of John's subdivision.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I don't see that on the submittal. I guess I'm confused on if we're voting. What am I voting on? I'm voting on a split with a right-of-way. Is that what I'm voting on?
I'm just here to ask for the split. First time, I suppose you never said anything about it, about the easement or the roadway or anything, but the easement's going to be there.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't aware of.
I think the first time you presented it to us, you didn't tell us that that was what you were planning. On having your driveway be on another person's property with an easement allowing you to use that driveway.
Right.
Is that correct?
What?
It's not the first time that this has happened. What we've normally requested in reference to that would be a copy of whatever legal document you had obtained ensuring that that easement would take place, so that, like I said, if in turn you sold that piece of property, that we can rest assured as a planning board that that ease is guaranteed to you or any future owners, your descendants or whatever you want to refer to them as. And we usually had that as part of the subdivision approval.
Okay.
Now, normally, the site survey given to us would show the driveway on it. Therefore, because it's normally the same thing you would provide to the code enforcement officer so that he can then determine that the building is placed in such a manner that it's not violating any zoning laws or doesn't require a variance or anything like that.
Yeah, but something like that, it's pretty much after the fact. I mean, I don't even know if you're going to approve this subdivision. That's what I'm looking at right now. The lawyer's drawing up the easement right now.
May I ask, Mr. DC, what is the purpose of the right-of-way? In other words, why isn't there a drive on your property rather than your next-door neighbor's property?
Well, it's just going to be a cost factor, really. So all three of us can come off one road and maintain it. Because the other, Ray Alejandro, who's going to have the easement, he's going to be back about 700 feet also.
And the gentleman named Ray is lot 6?
Yes.
Very logical move, by the way.
Just need to make more sense to have one roadway than have three driveways coming off the main road.
I personally would rather seen that on the submittal, that we had something.
I didn't understand it. You needed that.
Something of that sort.
And so it was brought up the first time I proposed there would have been no problem if we had it by now, but I didn't understand you needed that.
Is there any, with a private drive such as this, is there any anticipation of more splits coming before the planning board?
No.
This right-of-way that you're referring to now will be in writing that the town will never have to take over that drive.
That's correct. The way it's going to be written up is the three of us are going to be responsible for maintaining the road.
I will get into the sewage aspect about it. For the Seward County Health Department, you should have a soil and site field accommodation evaluation by the property should be conducted before the purchase of the property. In our subdivision regulations, where no existing or planned public sewers exist, that shall be provided with separate sewer facilities. Such lots shall be a sufficient size according to the character of the land and the size of the system to provide adequate leaching and satisfactory performance to the system in compliance with regulations of the town and state health department. I just know that has been followed on this subdivision from, Rizzo had it.
Why wasn't this brought up the first time it was proposed?
There's a lot of things that coming out the longer it goes on, the more we're finding out what is coming up in the open. One thing that I've always stressed is sewer and water for these properties, people that buy their property. In that area over there, just a regular septic tank is going to be severe and redness and everything. They're most likely going to have to go to a raised bed engineered system to serve that area over on Maple Ave. And maybe the future buyer should know this before he buys the land. You know, like in your case, maybe you should have known it.
The buyer, I mean,
Yeah, you should have known this before you bought it from Mr. Rizzo. But we thought this was being complied with, but now we're finding out that it's not being complied with. And so what we're finding out tonight is we're going to try to have a common drive. It should show a 15-foot right-of-way to your land from a regular road too, I guess. But I don't know how we want to handle this.
Well, he shows 202 feet and 239 feet frontage on Maple Ave for both his parcels. As a planning board, we have in the past operated in subdivisions of your kind with, under the knowledge that no septic systems will be allowed unless it's approved by our code enforcement officer and receives state and county approval. We have operated in the past that we have not required an applicant like yourself to do this study prior to coming to us for a split. And I think that until such time as we as a board determine that we don't want to handle that in that manner any longer, I think that that's how we should continue. We all know that before a person can put a septic system on their property or utilize it, it does have to pass a series of state and county tests. What our laws, our subdivision laws say that if you don't have a municipal sewer system, you must have an approved septic system on your property. I guess as a board, and I think Bill disagrees with that policy, the board has operated from that perspective in the past. And if we're going to go different than that, I think that we as a board then should pass a resolution changing that or recommending that the subdivision laws spell it out a little clearer and give applicants an opportunity to go that route. I think until such time, we should handle this subdivision as we have handled other subdivisions with the knowledge that whoever has to buy the property, they will have to have an approved septic system before they can use it. It does put the buyer at some risk or a buyer beware type feature, as you've stated. But that's, our buyers do need to be knowledgeable regarding these matters. Is there any other comments from the board at this time regarding this specific site plan? We can, if we were to approve this, we can tie a contingency on this, requiring from our building inspector that prior to any building permit being issued, that a copy of the legal document spelling out the easement and the rights of the property owners on the easement be presented to the planning board for their records so that I can have it on file here, which we can then refer to in the future if there was ever a problem. Is there any other comments from members of the board?
So you can't say you haven't been told, but you know you have to have professionally designed prints when you come for a building permit. Just
Yeah.
approved.
Yeah.
You know that. March 31st.
Well, that's part of the...
You know, $10,000.
Okay, is there any other comments from members of the board?
Were you trying to state that as a motion on that contingency thing?
I'm saying that if a motion was passed, that contingency could be attached to it.
Another contingency I would like to see along with that is I'd like to see that drawing. I don't say that I have to see it before it's approved, but I think it should be on file with the enforcement officer before. I'm still concerned about that right of way. Yeah, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that on a drawing. Is what I'd like to see. And I'm sure that you're in the process of doing that. If you're doing it legally now, I'm sure that's going to be done. I would just like to see it on file. No problem. Yeah.
What we can do is make it a point that this building could do that, to separate this resolution and get it to me, that I then can in turn get it to the code enforcement officer to make sure that he's aware of this contingency when Mr. Deasy comes to see him. Okay?
How you handling the next gentleman coming over here for sort of split on his land there?
You mean on lot 6?
Yes.
Well, he has not.
We hope there's not going to be another split.
Okay, is there any other comment?
No.
Okay, then I would like to make the following resolution. Approving the request for subdivision by Mr. Sean Deasy to divide his 10.4 acre parcel into two parcels, one being approximately 7 acres and one being approximately 3.5 acres. With the following contingencies. First, that a copy of the legal document ensuring access of property owners to the private driveway that will be built on lot number 6. Is that correct? That driveway will be constructed on lot number 6, to be constructed on lot number 6. Will be presented to the planning board prior to the issuance of any building permits by the code enforcement officer. And that the planning board be provided with a copy of the drawings that will be presented to the code enforcement officer at the time that an application for a building permit is placed.
I got one question. We don't have the classification of that stream, Waterhouse Creek. If a certain classification, he has to apply for a permit to bridge it.
Yeah, and I think that's probably going to be a problem with the DEC on that.
Yeah, that creek has been bridged by Rizzo, hasn't it?
Yes.
Something that we overlooked.
Rizzo made the first application, and he got permission to do all that with the DEC down there. That was my understanding on that. He supposedly handled that because of that stream down through there. He also did that on his property between, I might be wrong on this, I think it's between lot 3 and 4. He showed on his, I don't have it, yeah, I don't have that with us, but that was written up on his site plan approval form that he gave us. That was written up on that between lot 3 and 4, and there was some type of a stream on 5 or 6 back in there that he mentioned. I thought he mentioned on it because he built some bridges in there with the permission of the DEC.
Now he sold this land
I would say that we approved that. You know, I'm confused on what we approved before, but I would say that once it was approved for whether it was John Rizzo from Mr. Deasy. In other words, we knew that Mr. Rizzo was going to sell that, technically, that property there. We didn't know that he was going to split it, but it's really the same property, I think. The center line of the creek goes, it always went through there. I'm guessing that was correct at the time. I don't think the creek has changed at all. We've gotten changed, but.
If he apply for the permit if needed, and because I believe
He might, Mr. Deasy might need some type of a permit from the DEC in order to bridge that.
Okay, well, I'd like to attach a third contingency on this. Okay, I'll get back to that. Let's stick with the resolution. The final contingency will state that it is the understanding of the planning board that no further subdivision of lot number 5 will be, let's put it as the understanding of the planning board and the developer that no subdivision of lot number 5 will take place which will result in less than 100 feet of frontage on Maple Ave for any part of the parcel number 5.
That's the full regulation anyway, right?
Well, what I'm resulting in is that I want to make it clear that this approval is contingent on the idea that you're not going to take a portion of lot number 5 and totally eliminate access to Maple Ave, giving yourself access only through that easement. Because what you end up is with a landlocked parcel. And I don't want to see that happening. And, you know, if that's what you have intended at some point in the future, where you're going to take this front part and sell that off, and then end up with a landlocked parcel in the back, only having access to the easement, then we got a problem. Because that's really not a good design. Can you read that back, please? That third contingency.
Third one. It is the understanding of the planning board and the developer that no further subdivision of lot number 5 will take place, which would result in less than 100 feet of frontage on Maple Ave for any part of parcel number 5.
Craig said in the office, so we're going to split the parcel anymore anyway.
He has the right. He has the right under our zoning laws to do that. I guess this is what I feel would be, if we're faced with that, I don't want to end up with this part here being separated. And does that sound relatively clear? Yes. Okay, you want to read back the resolution, please?
Resolution approving request for subdivision by Sean Deasy to divide a 10.4-acre parcel into 2 parcels, approximately 7 acres and approximately 3.5 acres, with the following contingencies. Number 1, a copy of the legal document ensuring access of the property owners to the private driveway that will be built on lot number 6 be presented to the planning board prior to the issuance of any building permits by the CEO. Number 2, that the planning board be provided with a copy of the drawings that will be presented to the CEO at the time an application for building permit is placed. Number 3, it is the understanding of the planning board and developer that no further subdivision of lot number 5 will take place, which will result in less than 100 feet of frontage on Maple Avenue for any part of the parcel
Hold on a
number 5.
second. Which will result in any portion of that parcel having less than 100 feet of frontage on Maple Ave. Okay? Any resulting or any portion of the parcel having less than 100 feet of frontage on Maple Ave.
Yeah, there's the other thing. Okay. Any portion of the parcel having less than 100 feet of frontage on Maple Ave.
Okay. Now, number 1, you want to go through, read the contingency 1 again.
Copy of the legal document ensuring access of the property owners to the private driveway that will be built on lot number 6 be presented to the planning board prior to the issuance of any building permits by the CEO.
Okay, is there any discussion regarding this resolution? Sean, do you find this resolution acceptable?
Yep.
under, I think it's, would you like a second?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be facetious, but under legal advice from our town attorney, I'll second that motion.
Chairman Conway,
Aye.
Robert Brown,
Aye.
William Pierce,
Aye.
Gary Fianna.
Aye. Thank you very much for your patience.
How can I get a hold of you to do that?
If you present it to the town clerk in an envelope with my name on it, he'll put it in my box. And I have your mailing address. As soon as she gets me a copy of the resolution, I'll send a copy of it to you.
Okay, appreciate it.
Okay, Sean?
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Type the resolution up tomorrow and mail it out.
That'd be great, thanks. Okay, on to new business, we did have Mrs. Lockwood, is that correct? She has contacted me, I think she got lost in the shuffle a little bit with the change in code enforcement officers, and she contacted me regarding a request for a split of her property. Could you stand up, please, and explain to the board what you're planning on doing?
Okay. We intend to give an acre of land to our daughter and son-in-law. The acre of land they now are living on, they have a mobile home, and it's been approved by the town of Volney. We'd like to deed the land off to them so that they can build a house.
Okay, is that copy there available to us?
This is my son. I would like, my daughter is all ready to go to the bank. We have another property that we're deeding off to our son, but I'd like
Can I
to
just
approve
borrow
on
this
that.
temporarily? Oh, this is for your son?
Yeah, that,
Well, I want to deal with one at a time here.
okay, that's what I thought, that's why I left it on the table.
You're going to be deeding 1 acre to your son and then 1 acre to your daughter?
Yep.
But we're going to deal with your daughter tonight?
Yes.
Okay, we'll deal, and she's the one that's going to the bank tomorrow. Okay, we'll deal with your daughter tonight. In reference to your son, I would appreciate it if you could bring it at the next meeting,
Will it
okay?
be as long as this?
No, I hope not, but I
If
would
it is, I'd
appreciate
rather
it if
do
we
it
could
tonight.
see the code enforcement officer first with this, so that he can review the material and then forward to us.
I
That
tried
was the-
before. I mean, I had talked with him before, and
Okay.
I didn't get anything.
Okay, if you bring that material to, you know, as of the end of this week, it won't be Dan any longer, they then should forward that material to us, okay, and then we review it. That's the normal process you would follow. You first see the code enforcement officer.
Where are we at anyway?
Just near the,
What road?
by the house,
Yeah.
just before you get there.
This is on Route
Coming out,
176.
yeah.
It's in an agriculturally zoned parcel. Are there any streams or anything going through this property?
There is, but that's on the back property that my husband and I are gonna maintain, the 9 acres that we're maintaining.
Is this property wooded, or is it tended to be,
That's the property, the acre that we're giving them. Yes, there is woods on it, but again, the woods, the creek, and the wetlands all lie on this 9 acres that we're keeping.
That next door to that brown house?
We are the brown.
Oh, you are the brown.
And then there's a trailer on either side of us.
okay, this is the 1 acre parcel that we're talking about?
No.
That looks like the whole thing.
That's the wrong survey. I don't know if this is what we're talking about. That's my son.
This is the one?
Which one's going tonight?
That's my
This
daughter.
one. Okay, this is the 1 acre parcel right here, correct? Now, it's gonna have 174 feet on County Route 176? Okay. 174 in the front, 125 in the rear? Oh, 125 to this point here. Okay. All right.
The 9 acres, the 9 acres that we're maintaining will come in there.
The brown house is here?
Yes.
This one already got the, septic and the, water already in there?
There you go, Joe. You got
Got
one,
one
huh?
already in there.
You got one.
which one are we doing here, Lockwood or Owen?
Owen.
Owen, okay. This one here, some reason or other, that one got in
Did
there
I
too.
get on this one?
Yeah, that's,
No, this is
Oh, does it?
Owen, yes.
where we at?
Well, Dennis and Elaine Lockwood, who were given,
Okay,
this, myself and my husband.
okay,
were
you're giving it to them,
to-
all right, okay.
You got over between them, right? I'll give you the word, yeah.
Not yet, I thought I had to ask permission to do it first.
Well, they may have trouble closing because certain lawyers require subdivision approval first.
You gonna take that together, are you?
Okay, are there any other questions?
No.
Can I entertain a motion on this?
Bill, you know what, you know what location this is?
Yes. You know where the meat market is, going on 176? Maybe you can come back this way, there's a brown house, and there's a trailer between the brown house and
What house burned down on the corner there? Am I in the wrong spot?
Well, no, but that's farther up, that was
Farther.
Ronnie Maxim.
Okay, all right, I'm up to 5 and I.
Yeah.
Okay.
we'll read that. Or meat market.
I guess I can answer that now that I, just vaguely. Okay. Joe, did you know this was coming before the board tonight? I mean, have you been out by there?
I know the area.
Yeah.
I was here and talked to you guys in April also, at one point.
Yeah,
Mostly all-
she
it's all
called
open
me
land.
on the
It's all
phone.
open land anyway.
Running into some difficulties getting a hold of Dan on this project, and I think what he's been doing is because he's been phasing out, he's been kind of directing people to either myself or to Gene, because we've been getting some calls on these things lately.
Well, you know, one of the things that we're looking forward to is to have a minimum of 150-foot frontage, and that's 174, so they've gone above what we would like to see on the thing.
One thing I would like to state is that I hope you understand that when you come before us for your son, if this doesn't go before our code enforcement officer first, I'm going to respectfully say, ma'am, could you do that, okay? Because I want to start getting this process. See, it's important that he has an opportunity to review it. Can I entertain a motion regarding this request for subdivision approval?
I'll make the motion that we grant the subdivision of the 1 acre, Mrs. Lockwood.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Gary.
Chairman Conley,
Aye.
Robert Brown,
Aye.
William Pierce,
Aye.
Gary Standard.
Aye.
Okay, what we'll do is, I'll get it, do I have your address somewhere here? Would it be, let's see, RD2, box 285, Fulton, New York? Okay, what I'll do is I'll get a copy of this, signed, and I'll try to get it off in the mail to you in the near future, okay?
Now, can we go ahead and go to the lawyers to start getting these?
Yes, you can. You can tell them you've received subdivision approval. If they require documentation, call me up and I'll get it to you. Okay? Thank you very much. I appreciate your
Can I have
patience.
the name of who I need to contact for the other?
His name, as of the end of this week, his name is going to be Ed Kuhn. Okay, it's Kuhn. And if you need his phone number, I would suggest that you go to the town hall. Byron Rowley is the town clerk. He's here from 7:30 in the morning, usually to about 4:30. And either call him and ask him if you can get the phone number.
Okay. I'll start early. 2 months isn't enough time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We do have a little bit of new business here that I'd like, has everybody gotten a copy of this proposal? I know, I think I got it too. What this does, this addresses some things that we discussed at, in the past, and I would like to discuss it real quick. We seem to be very involved with approval of things like single splits for residents like Mrs. Lockwood, which is in a lot of cases, it's a relatively minor matter. But as it stands right now, there can be some very large developments taking place, which as it goes, we have no review over. And among those would be a multi-family dwelling, migrant camps, in any industrial uses, such as I mentioned, there was a proposed tractor-trailer storage facility, and cleaning and structure, it's gonna be going on Pierce Drive, and in essence, we have no review power over that whatsoever, because it's in an industrial zone, and that type of use, industrial zone, doesn't require site plan review. And I frankly don't think that's correct. I'd like to be spending a little more time looking at commercial uses where we can have an impact and really have these things tend to follow a uniform, not something that's intended to be restricting to them, but just basically get a uniform pattern of development, you know, stress the parking in the rear, stress that there be a curb cut. But we have actually no review power whatsoever, as long as they conform to our zoning laws, which are very vague in some respects. There's nothing regarding landscaping, there's nothing regarding anything like that that they would have to apply to. If we can at least get some site plan review, we can work in that direction. Not in a way, like I said, to hamper development, but in a way to have attractive development. Give them some guidelines. And what I've gone through here is the designations, which I feel have just basically been left out, that there's no site plan review required, and I've asked that an asterisk be placed next to those, or we've recommended to the town board to amend our zoning ordinances to require that. And what that would do then is just simply say that, hey, it's going to require site plan review. I'm going to read it and then open it up for comment and then get your feelings regarding that. Prior to that, though, I forgot this other part. There's also, the original zoning laws required that agriculturally zoned parcels be a minimum of 2 acres. You'll look at it, if you look at the copy of zoning laws, you'll see where it's crossed out and changed to 1 acre. With all this interest now regarding septic systems, well water, that a well has to be, was it 100 feet away from the septic system, is that correct? Mm-hmm. You're ending up with situations where wells would be on the property line of another person's parcel in order to conform to that. You've heard it tonight, there's been a lot of talk about trying to retain the agricultural characteristics of our agricultural districts, and what we're running into is a situation where we've got cookie cutter type developments every 1 acre down the road, every 150 feet down the road, and what this does, in my opinion, is it does not increase significantly the cost of a piece of property. If a person wants to sell their land, they're going to sell it at the minimum size that they have to sell it. If they have to sell it as a 2 acre parcel instead of a 1 acre parcel, that's what they're going to do. And at the same time, it increases that frontage, which I think is very important. 100 feet of frontage is not a lot of frontage. I bet you from here to the wall is 100 feet. Due to the present concerns regarding adequate space for wells and sewage disposal, I think you already got a copy, don't you? Mm-hmm. Due to the present concerns regarding adequate space for wells and sewage disposal, as well as maintaining the character of neighborhoods in our agriculturally zoned properties, the planning board recommends that the town board make the following changes to our current zoning ordinance. That on page Z011, under area and bulk schedule, that area per family under residential and area for non-residential for A agricultural zone be returned to the original 2 acre minimum. That the width at the building line be changed from 100 feet to 175 feet for residential and non-residential development in the agricultural zone designation. 2, under R1 and R2 designation, an asterisk would be placed at the bottom of the page, placed in capitals above the C cluster development statement. The following statement would be placed. Residential or non-residential dwellings in R1 or R2 zones requiring well water and not attached to a municipal sewer system that are not subject to major subdivision or mobile park regulations are subject to bulk and area schedule shown under the A agricultural designation. What I tried to say there is that if you're in an R1 zone and your residential lot is basically, you need a well, you need septic, then you really should fall under the same regulations that we spelled out in the agricultural zone regarding minimum lot size.
In residential zone, you got beyond public, can it be on public property?
No.
No?
No, there's no public water down County Route 57. Or County Route, Old Route 57, it's all wells, that's what I believe. It is the intention of the planning board to work closely with commercial developers to develop a more safe, effective, and attractive pattern of site design. To do this in a manner that is both beneficial to the developer as well as the town, the planning board requests that the following adjustments to our present zoning laws be made by the town board. 1, page Z05, section 3, use regulations. Under multifamily dwelling, add an asterisk. You know, that could be a townhouse, basically. Migratory worker camp, add an asterisk. We don't have any site plan review of a migratory worker camp. Accessory uses, listing 2 and 3, starting with accessory uses customarily, add asterisk to each listing. Light industrial uses, under research laboratory, add asterisk, and under manufacture, fabrication, add asterisk. At bottom of light industrial use designation, add tractor trailer or industrial parking not on the same lot. Place a P with asterisk under agricultural and industrial zoning designation. What that does, in my opinion, is that puts us, we did the Longley Brothers situation. There should be an area where they can park tractor trailers. You know, we can't just say you can't have it everywhere. This would at least be the step of setting up a tractor trailer or industrial parking designation. I'd like to open this up for comment.
Okay, the last one there, I don't think should be under agriculture. I think we ought to leave our tractor trailer parking in the industrial zone where the industry has it. Any other business for tractor trailer parking, is it incidental to commercial business or something?
I believe that the problem is that most every other industrial use is permitted in an agricultural zone, isn't it?
I don't believe that tractor trailer parking ought to be in an agricultural zone. It should be an industrial zone. That's it.
Well, the problem is that 70% of our property, as you're aware, is in an agricultural zone.
We also got a lot of industrial. The airport, the Silk Road, the 176, the Route 3, that's all industrial.
How does the rest of the board feel regarding that?
I have no problem with being in industrial zoning.
Well, I think if it was only in industrial zoning, we'd never have a problem with it, because, you know, that, and we think about it being with an industry. In other words, that's what we thought tractor trailer parking was all about, that it had something to do with an industry. In other words, if you're going to have parking, it would be doing that. Actually, what we're seeing is that a lot of it has something to do with the industry, but it's in an outlying area away from the industry. I think that's where a big problem is, because everybody realizes.
You end up like you have on the other side of the line with like Phoenix.
It's Phoenix.
You find
Gary, how do you feel about it? I was incorrect. Most of the research laboratory and manufacturer is permitted only in an industrial zone. That's what it was on the card.
Now, some of these things, a small percentage of these things, were covered in the new regulations that we wrote up a year and a half or 2 years ago.
That's right.
Now, if this would have been presented 6 or 8 months ago, I would have said, no, there's no sense of us doing this, because soon we're going to be voting on the new regulations. But I don't see anything in the very near future that we're going to be voting on.
No, it does not seem to be a priority at this time.
So I guess that, yeah, these are some problems that we have. We did cover the migratory work camp on the new write-up, and I thought we covered part of the multi-family dwelling too on that. But I know one thing we didn't do, we didn't cover tractor trailer industrial parking. I know we didn't touch that.
Problem is, as I was talking to somebody else, it appears at this time that the revised zoning laws are really in a state of flux. It's not a priority with the town board, and in the meantime, we're sitting here spending a lot of time on women or men who want to take and set aside an acre of land for their kids, and in the meantime, building permits are being issued for commercial commercial businesses and things like that, which I think it would be more appropriate for us to be dealing with. Not that we shouldn't be dealing with these other things, but hey, you know, there's other, if a guy's gonna open a car repair shop, I think it'd be more appropriate for us to take a look at his site plan and just basically, okay, where are you gonna be putting these cars, you know? No problem, but why don't you move them more towards the back of the building than parking them right along the road? Or something like that, than be spending a lot of time with what we did tonight with Mrs. Lockwood. Not to say, like I said, that wasn't appropriate, but hey, you know, some guy can put a factory in this town and we would have nothing to do with it. We really won't. We don't even get site plan review. And yet, we deal with these people are required to come before us. I think they should be too. That's my opinion. If the board feels that, if the majority of the board feels that the agricultural aspect of it should be removed, we can do that.
I'm strongly in favor of
Okay.
taking it out.
Bob, you are also?
Yes, I am.
Gary, how do you feel about it? Okay, then let's cross that right out. And remember that this is merely a recommendation. This doesn't change anything. All this does is it just says to the town board that, hey, we think you guys should give some consideration to this. They may decide not to do that.
Is there a chance it might light a fire under the town board to start reviewing the new zoning regulations?
I got another question too.
Sure.
I think we're missing another thing on number one. We want to go with 175 foot, even though the G11 says at the building line. Our problem is at the road frontage. We want to get lots of 175 feet wide at the road frontage. The way it stands right now, they can come up with a 15-foot right-of-way and get back.
Remember we had the one lot?
It's addressed in the new zoning too. They addressed that.
We addressed that there because you could own 30 feet on County Route 6, and back where you're building on there, it could be 200 feet. Your lot could be 200 feet back there, and technically the building inspector can't do a thing about that.
You know, I think it's a very good point. Why don't we get this to them, and then why don't you draw something up explaining that as a resolution, recommendation?
I think you got it covered right here.
Yeah, I do too.
Change it to road frontage.
Yeah, instead of building line, what's
That the building,
It doesn't say anything, because I was thinking about that and I didn't.
that the width of the building line be changed from 100 feet to 175. We would like to see it at the road frontage.
Road frontage.
Instead of building line.
Period, and state at the building line, or at the
road.
That the width at the
frontage.
The frontage, road frontage be changed from 100 feet.
State. Road frontage. You're gonna have to, change that on your copy and then retype this, okay?
Can you see where it
State
is?
road frontage.
it's crossed out.
Road frontage, yes.
State, no, wait, no. Add it to, after designation, you got a period, okay? And then say, and state road frontage instead of,
Why not just change that paragraph completely? That the width at the road frontage be changed from 100 feet to 175 feet.
because it doesn't state road frontage, we have to have something that states to change building line.
In the new regulations, we state it as road frontage.
Right.
Because that was where we were having some problems. Okay.
Of building line. Wait, what does it say?
Yeah,
In place
with
of,
the building line.
in place of building. So you have period at designation and then state, wait, no, how does it say? That the width at the building line be changed from 100 feet to 175 feet for residential, non-residential development in the agricultural zone designation, comma, and change the wording from building line to road frontage.
Yeah, that'll do it.
And put an asterisk, building line to road frontage, not asterisk. Close. Okay? What do you think? What's the comment? comments. Do you feel that this will be a positive move?
Yes.
Yes, I think so.
Don't you think that that'll stop a lot of people from buying 1 acre land and building because of the price of property in the town?
And I think you see, like, when I bought land, the developer told me that the land I wanted to buy, I want a little bit more. He said, well, and I told him I won't be cheaper, you know, I don't need much, I only need, 20 feet. He said, that don't bother me. He said, I'll give you 50 by 100. He said, but I need this amount of money. And they don't worry about the extra bit of land, they would set a sum for what they need. Right. And they'll stick to it.
That's normally the argument that's thrown, and I really wondered about that myself. There is increasing concern now with this sewage disposal and then placement of the septic field from the well. State law, and that's like states set mandates, but they don't tell you how to do it. The state law, as of the beginning, I think, of this year, defined that you have to have your well 100 feet away from the septic system, okay? And that's becoming a problem on 1 acre lots. And then you also have a situation where you have lots that are 100 feet wide by great depth, which results in houses 50 feet back from the road being placed about every 50 feet away from each other, as long as they conform to the 20-yard side yard setbacks. And it's a problem if we are to, and then I do agree with Bill, because I've seen so many instances where if a guy wants to divide his lot, he's going to divide his lot into whatever portions he's required to divide it into to get the maximum amount of sales, and then he's going to sell it at whatever the market's going to allow it to go for. Right now, land's pretty cheap. Will it restrict some people from buying properties? It might restrict some first-time home buyers in some cases, but I think it doesn't prevent them. They may then buy a home, let's say, in the city of Fulton. Or if they have a mobile home or something, they may have to go into a trailer park temporarily or something like that. What I do see is like what we have on County Route 3, just down the road here, where we have a tremendously large field, and there's a little 1 acre parcel with a trailer sitting right there. What that did, in my opinion, is that took a piece of property that could possibly be better used for something else, and now has begun to restrict that. And we could see another one right next to it and another one right next to it. It's a good point, and it is something that you've got to weigh. And in your mind, you're going to have to weigh that. I've been weighing it for a long time, and I've kind of come out with the septic and all this well and all these concerns that we should at least make that recommendation.